Importance Understanding Order 134, which were raised, and the first one came from Bwengwa Member of Parliament, Mr. Mijelo Kasauta, on the subject matter on the statement allegedly issued by Mr. Edgar Silungu that citizens would rise against the president before the 2026 general elections. And this one was admitted. The Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security was directed to issue a ministerial statement on Tuesday, 5th March 2024.
And the next matter of urgent public importance was raised by Mr. Arash Totela, and this was on the disposal of state assets, and this matter was also ruled inadmissible.
So the last one came from Bambashe Member of Parliament. I beg your pardon. The last one came from Mr. Alex Katakwe on the subject matter on the procurement of equipment for the Cancer Disease Hospital, and it was not admitted.
Thereafter, the House, there was a ministerial statement that was rendered by Her Honor the Vice President, and this was on the sentencing of children, and briefed the House on the laws governing the sentencing of children who come in conflict with the law.
Thereafter, the House did consider questions for oral answer numbers 245 to 249, Understanding Order 74. Remember, questions which fall under this category are those questions of ordinary nature.
There was a private member's motion that was moved by FEIRA Member of Parliament, Mr. Emmanuel Tembo, and this private member's motion was titled Compensate Victims of Human-Animal Conflict, and of course this was debated widely, and the motion was seconded by Mpika Central Member of Parliament, Mr. Francis Kapyanga. And after debate, a question was put, and it was negatived. And thereafter, the House resolved to adjourn after finishing all the business on the order paper for the day. The House therefore adjourned accordingly at 18:41. So that was business of the House yesterday. And just now, we take a look at what is expected to be discussed on the floor of the House today, Thursday, 29 February 2024.
So we have 6 questions for oral answer Understanding Order 74 and 1 question for written answer. So the first question is coming from Mr. Andrew Tayengwa, who happens to be Kawata constituency Member of Parliament. He's directed this question to the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. He wants to find out whether the government has any plans to construct a modern market in Kawata parliamentary constituency, and B, if so, when the plans will be implemented, and C, what the estimated cost of the project is.
We have a question coming from Kalabo Central Member of Parliament, Mr. Chinga Miutu, and this question is directed to the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. And the first part of the question, he wants to know whether there are any mechanisms to measure the economic impact of the youth and women empowerment component of the Constituency Development Fund. And the second part of the question, if so, what the mechanisms are.
So Mr. Emmanuel Tembo, here constituency Member of Parliament, has directed his question to the Minister of Transport and Logistics. He wants to find out whether the government has any plans to modernize the Luangwa harbour at the confluence of Luangwa and Zambia's rivers in Luangwa district, as to enhance trade between Zambia, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. So in B, the MP wants to find out, if so, when the plans will be implemented, and see what are the trade volumes between Zambia, Mozambique and Zambia, Zimbabwe at the harbour was as of August 2023.
We have one motion that is expected to be moved by Chifunabuli Member of Parliament, Ms. Julian Nyemba, and this is to urge the House that they do adopt the report of the Zambia delegation to the 54th Plenary Assembly session of the SADC Parliamentary Forum hosted by the National Assembly of Mauritius in Port Louis, Mauritius from 22nd to 26 November 2023 for the 3rd session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20 February 2024.
So basically, many more to come right here on Parliament Television as we continue to bring Parliament closer to you. And right now, as you can see on your screen, Madam Speaker's procession making its way into the chamber.
Honorable members of Parliament, Madam Speaker.
Tendency of Zambia, proud and free, land of wealth and joy in unity, victors in the struggle for our rights. We want freedom side, oh, one, strong and free. Africa is our own motherland, fashioned with and blessed by God's own hand. Let us all our people join as one, brothers under the sun. Oh, one, strong and free. One land and one nation is our cry. Dignity and peace in Zambia's sky, like a noble eagle in its flight. Zambia, praise to thee, oh, one, strong and free. Praise be to God, praise be, bless our great Zambia, Zambia, Zambia. Green and we stand under the flag of our land. Zambia, praise to thee, oh, one, strong and free.
Prayer. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to consider with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important responsibilities in this land. Let your blessing descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation, in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. We start with matters of urgent public importance. The Honorable Member for Lupososhi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Luposo, is it Lubase? Oh, sorry. I was looking at Honorable Member for Lubaseshi.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Lubaseshi.
Thank you so much. If you're anything, we are sister constituencies, Madam Speaker. Thank you so much for the opportunity given to the people of Lubansenshi constituency to ask the urgent public importance, which is directed to the Minister of Lands. Now, in this case, since he's not around, it will be directed to our honor, the Vice President.
Proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as you might be aware, that the Zambian government is trying to help each citizen in acquisition of pieces of land, and there is a program which is going on, which we call systematic titling program, which empowering each citizen in terms of acquisition of title deeds. And Madam Speaker, this program is targeted those people who are in the urban areas, and it's not really supporting the rural people. Now, we would like to ask the Minister of Lands to try and find out what measures the government is putting in place to ensure that the rural constituencies are not left out, because this program, Madam Speaker, for your information, it is coming to an end this quarter, which has excited the majority of the people in the rural areas to say they will be left out in this program. Therefore, I would like to seek your indulgence to see that these people can be also considered. I submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Luvasenshi. Clearly, that matter does not qualify to be raised as a matter of urgent public importance. I will suggest that you put in a question, and the Honorable Minister will be able to address your concerns. The Honorable Member for Mambirima.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to rise on a matter of urgent public importance. This one, Madam Speaker, is directed to the Ministry of Agriculture, and in this event, to our Honor the Vice President. Madam, I'm in possession of a letter from the Office of the President to direct the Food Reserve Agency that satellite sales of maize.
Honorable Member, before you quote from that letter, we need to make sure that it's authentic. Is it original? If it's not, is it a copy? And if so, is it certified?
It's a copy, Madam Speaker.
Is it duly certified by the issuing authority or ministry?
Yes, Madam Speaker. It's headed, and there's a date stamp. So
no, the question is it certified as a true copy?
Madam Speaker, you'll be able to identify it, really.
No, the rules are rules, Honorable Member for Mambirima. If it's not duly certified, please do not copy it.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, would it be? I would ask if you allow me to proceed. Then it would be for you to determine whether the
Honorable Member, there are rules. There are rules.
That is how the process should be, Madam Speaker. Allow me to speak.
Order. Order. I'm giving guidance. Maybe you can take your seat. I'm giving guidance here, and the guidance comes from the rules. So it's those rules that we are following. A backbencher cannot tender a document which, if it's an original, it has to be certified. Either it's an original or certified. And you may be kind enough to look at standing order. Is it 70? Let me just check. Standing order, let me just check the standing order. What? Okay. Honorable Member, I will refer you to Standing Order 139, tabling of public documents by backbencher. A backbencher may table a public document provided it is an original document. 2. A backbencher shall not table a copy of a public document unless the copy has been certified as a true copy of the original document by the relevant head of government ministry, department or agency that has custody of the original document. So those are our rules, honorable member. So please comply with the rules.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. In this event, I'll make reference to today's Daily Mail. On the first page, where Mill, it was alleged that Mill in Milenge was being sold at 850 kwacha. Madam Speaker, to refute this, the government says Mill is being bought at 350 and 365 respectively. Madam Speaker, in my constituency, Mill is being sold at 380 kwacha. Madam Speaker, this is a situation that needs urgent attention. For me, instead of discussing what Dr. ECL said and where he said it, we should actually be looking at serious issues that are affecting the nation, Madam Speaker.
Honorable member, you are out of order.
Madam Speaker, hunger is everywhere.
You are out of order, honorable member. You cannot combine two items, the price of meal and what somebody said. Those two do not even relate to each other. In any event, honorable member, yesterday there was a question over the issue of meal, and I think we had discussed it sufficiently. There was an issue over the question that was raised by the honorable member for Nakonde. Who is your neighbor there? If you were in the house and following the proceedings, you would have followed properly. So you are out of order. Honorable member Fonkana.
Madam Speaker, I rise to present a matter of urgent public importance pursuant to Standing Order 134, which matter I direct to the Vice President. Madam Speaker, the Israel-Palestine war has claimed over 30,000 lives, and that war has started drawing in other nations. Our actions and inactions can draw us into harm's way in relation to that war, because Zambia is a home to both Palestinians and Israelis. Last week, Madam Speaker, I presented a question to the Vice President over the matter, but because she was not aware, she responded that Zambia was not making a submission on the matter to The Hague. There is a gentleman, a Solicitor General, Marshal Muchende, who now has presented a position of Zambia to The Hague. Unless it is position, but I want to think it's government position now. And the Vice President now should be known or should be aware that Zambia has taken a position. Because of the complexity of this matter, is the Vice President in order, Madam Speaker, not to inform the Zambian people, the nation at large and the world as to the position that Zambia has taken in regards to the legal implication of Israel occupying Palestine? I seek your indulgence.
Thank you, honorable member. If you are interested in the war between Israel and Palestine and the consequences, you can put in a question. You can put in a question. Definitely the matter does not arise as a matter of urgent public importance. You can put in a question. That's my guidance. Questions for oral answer under Standing Order 74. The honorable member for Kabwata.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 250.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Tayengwa, the MP for Kawata, is asking the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development at A, whether government has plans to construct a modern market in Kawata parliamentary constituency, at B, if so, when the plans will be implemented, and at C, what estimated cost of the project is. Our response. Madam Speaker, the government has plans to construct a modern market in Kawata parliamentary constituency, subject to the availability of 1, land, and 2, funds. At B, the implementation period will be determined once a confirmation of the availability of the said 2 above items by the Lusaka City Council has been found. And at C, the estimated cost of each project shall be determined once the land is found and also the designs of the markets are completed. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary questions, the Honorable Member for Kabwata.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, I just wanted to find out, because we do have actually land in Kawata, and what we've seen is that part of that land has actually been shared by the well-known cadres who used to be there before. So I don't know what measures has government have, especially when it comes to land that is meant for markets and has actually been taken up by cadres.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Madam Speaker, let me thank the colleague and friend, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Kabwata, for that question. Madam Speaker, the sale of common areas was extremely prevalent in the last administration. It became the business of government. And I wish for the MP to know that this amassing of land was not only limited to political cadres, it also involved leaders. And I wish he could actually have, he seems to have information, because he said non-cadres shared this land. I want to remind the Honorable MP that at the time when we took office, courtesy of the Zambian people, the situation that we found was extending not only to common areas, but even to road reserves. The PF party, the party that just left office, found it expedient to parcel out any land which looked available and never took into account the generation that was coming after us, the Patriotic Front Party. And so these are some of the problems that we inherited, that we are trying to not only reverse, but also to resolve. And the reclaiming of these public areas, some of them require legal advice from the Office of the Attorney General, and it is just a matter of time. Once we find a path to reverse what may have gone wrong, or what went wrong, we are going to move expeditiously in order to get this land back to where it belongs. In the case of road reserves, this city called Lusaka, you can imagine how, if we don't reverse what the PF did, how the city will be in just 40 years' time once we are all gone. So we are determined, Honorable Member, to reverse this trend. With regard to the available land that you said is there, I would be happy for you to come to our office so that we can together identify this land, see whether it is a property of the council or not. And if it is a property of the council, it therefore goes without saying that the cost that I referred to for the purchase of land falls away, and then we can concentrate on soliciting for funds in order to put the modern market that you so desire.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Ron.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I bring greetings to you from His Majesty King Mwiko Lubosi II. Madam Speaker, I want to find out from the Minister, now that he has confirmed that government has indeed to build a modern market in Kawata constituency. And indeed, Honorable Minister, the moment you do that, there will be a rush for occupancy. Have you taken into consideration what will be the occupancy rate in terms of numbers? How many marketeers is this modern market going to occupy? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. Can we maintain some quietness in the House? A lot of chatting, discussing. If we want to chat, let's go outside and chat. When we are done, we can come back in the House. Otherwise, we will not even hear the questions that have been asked. For example, I did not hear what the honorable member for Ron was saying. If the honorable member can repeat the question.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I began by passing the greetings from His Majesty King Lubosi Mwiko II. My question to the Honorable Minister is that now that government has confirmed that you are indeed considering putting up the modern market in Kawata constituency once funds are available, have you taken into consideration what will be the occupancy rate or how many marketeers are going to be accommodated in this modern market that you are going to construct? Knowing very well, Honorable Minister, that the moment that comes out, there will be a rush for a space from our marketeers. What will be the rate of occupancy in terms of numbers? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm a bit confused, but I wouldn't tell the occupancy rate, and we'll cross the bridge when we get there. However, what I think the MP may have been referring to, I hope I won't be wrong, is what would be the capacity of this market. And to answer that, I would say that in my immediate past response, I said that outside of getting land, the other activity would be to cost via the designs that will be prepared for the construction of this market. It is the design that will inform the number of stores that will be there. But in terms of occupancy, whenever that happens, I can assure you, because of the lack of trading space in this country, I can tell you that it will be oversubscribed. There's no doubt in my mind that it will be more than 99%. All the stores that will be constructed at that time will be taken away, because we are determined to adhere to the Markets and Bus Station Act, the law that governs trade, and we will insist when market and trading spaces are found to shunt or drive or indeed shepherd our traders into the designated trading places in order to forestall normalcy once again.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kawata.
I'm grateful once again, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, as much as we know that the intention which government has shown that they are going to construct a modern market once we secure land. But my worry is that if you go around Kawata constituency, there are actually about 2 unfinished markets within the constituency, and these have now become a bleeding ground for junkies and also criminals who are hiding in such places. What measures are you taking as government to ensure that those places are protected?
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. In Kawata parliamentary constituency, just like Matero, Madam Speaker, we found that those who were there before us had begun construction of mini civic centers. What that means is that the idea was to manage the affairs of these large constituencies in a devolved manner. That same mini civic center that is next to Chilenje Level 1 Clinic has also been invaded by unscrupulous people who just came and took occupancy in an incomplete business. I am not surprised that those uncompleted markets are also under the same siege. Honorable Member, this is information that is new to me, it's latest, and together with yourself, working together, I think we must expediently ask the Council to engage the police to evict these youngsters who you refer to as junkies, and also working together with the Ministry of Community Development, who are responsible for the child welfare, to make sure that we harvest them out of those places and find a way to take them to the correct places for them. It is supposed to be a joint concerted effort between you, our dear representative of Kawata, us who are running government policy, to work together and make sure that people are brought back and are aligned to the law.
Thank you. Next question, the Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 251.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Madam, thank you once again. Mr. Miyutu, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Kalabo Central, is asking the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development at A, whether there are mechanisms to ensure the economic impact of the Youth and Women Empowerment component of the Constituency Development Fund, and at B, if so, what these mechanisms are. Our response, Madam Speaker. The government has put in place mechanisms to measure the economic impact of the Youth and Women Empowerment component of the Constituency Development Fund under its monitoring and evaluation framework. At B, the Ministry has developed a tool with specific indicators to collect data, to measure the outputs and outcomes, and subsequently the impact of the CDF under all the components of the Constituency Development Fund. The Ministry is also implementing the CDF dashboard, which facilitates, I beg your pardon, data collection and analysis of the CDF performance. Through these tools, mechanisms, the impact of the CDF with regard to the two components that the Honorable Member of Parliament for Kalabo is concerned about can easily be determined. I thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary questions, the Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was prompted to raise this question after looking at the constituency, Kalabo Central. Now that we are 2 years, the CDF was enhanced in 2022 first, then 2023. So both these 2 years, there was disbursement of grants, both to males and females, young, old. But looking around, I couldn't see the outcome of what has been poured into these constituencies. Okay, let me not say constituencies, but the constituents. The monitoring and evaluation mechanism, which is spearheaded by the Council. Honorable Minister, how effective is that monitoring and evaluation mechanism, which has one, shortage of staff? The DPO, for example, in Kalabo is one, the CS is one, the director. how effective is it that it can give us a prudent or substantive data that will indicate the actual economic growth which has been caused or influenced by the enhanced CDF? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Madam, one of the fundamental objectives of the expanded Constituency Development Fund by size and also by extent is poverty reduction before we talk about economic growth. The Honorable Member of Parliament for Kalabo is lamenting about the capacity of staff in terms of one of the action points in the determination of what impact these two components have had on our citizens, to be precise, the women and the children. I want to draw your attention, Honorable colleague, to the report that we circulated from the ministry that was speaking to the absorption or the utilization rate of the Constituency Development Fund. That particular summary is contained in the dashboard that I just spoke about here, to the extent that you can, at the click of a button, once we roll it out, you are able to tell who benefited from grants, who benefited from loans, in this case, in which constituency and in which ward. Part of the process, Madam Speaker, before loans or even grants are given out to our citizens, a deliberate policy by this government, is that the due diligence is conducted. The staff go to visit the applicants to make sure that they have the infrastructure to conduct the business for which they've applied and to do the activity of the cooperatives for which they have applied. This responsibility is by and large a shared responsibility by the citizens themselves, who should not abuse this particular gesture by government, by the council staff themselves, by the area member of parliament himself, such as you. And this is the reason why, Madam Speaker, in the new act that is coming, you will observe very clearly that the MP remains the focal point person on the success of the Constituency Development Fund. Why do I say so? It's because the representatives of the CDFC, nearly 6, if I'm not mistaken, are recommended by the area member of parliament, which means is it 3? Honorable Cassandra, in the document that we worked with, and I think if I'm not mistaken, you were part of this particular document that we envisage is coming. It will have 5 members who are handpicked by the area member of parliament. What that tells you is that, and in fact I was right when I said 6, because the 6th person is the MP himself. So it means the MP has got 12 eyes in that committee. And this is the reason why, if there is failure of performance of the Constituency Development Fund, the MP must bear a portion of that blame, because he's got a lion's share in appointing those who are going to look after the interests and aspirations of the people who we represent. And if you are arguing, it is fair to argue, because that's what this house is all about. When the bill comes here, when it's presented, please argue that let the MP be alone so that we can find someone else to take that responsibility to choose who to sit on the Constituency Development Fund. So you cannot have your cake and eat it. Because the MP has been fighting to have dominion and control over the Constituency Development Fund. And we've granted that, I beg your pardon, to the Honorable MP, with full recognition that when time comes for apportioning success, the MP is the one who's going to be the one carrying the flag. And when there's failure, it goes without saying that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. And therefore, if it fails, just know we will blame you. There will be no qualms, no doubts about it. If the CDF performance fails in your constituency, it will be up to you to pass the buck. Maybe to the council workers, but again, we have given you leverage that you can, if you think the procurement process, which normally becomes the main hurdle, is not going right, you have the right to make as much sound bites or noise, to put it plainly, to the council the way you make the sound bites or noises here. The idea of this government, Madam Speaker, of devolution or decentralization is to cascade the influence power to the people to determine their own destiny. And the MP, those same people who vote for you, you should be able to control them. If the council secretary, I had a row with one council secretary whose constituency I won't mention, but the MP is here, and she can bear me witness. But there's a complete disconnect between the aspirations of the MP and the staff. If you are suffering from that similar problem, bring it on. Bring it to me. I am the one who's supervising these councils. You can't sit on your rails and say, this thing is not working. We will blame you. And if it's the staff that's not doing the right thing, bring it on to us. We'll pass on the names to the commission. The commission will take action. But it's not enough to simply sit and say, it's not working. We will blame you.
Before we proceed, there is an indication for a point of order. Honorable Member Fonkana, what's the point of order?
Madam Speaker, my point of order is pursuant to 65. All such information that we tender in this August House is put on record. The public there are following these proceedings. The Honorable Minister of Local Government deliberately has decided to mislead the public, to insinuate that a failure of CDF would be put on the shoulders of an MP. Yet the minister understands that the MP is far away from the implementation of CDF. And he is aware that, an example we can give, the MP's role ends at only making a submission of what ought to be done in the constituency. The rest is taken by the councils. Is the minister, Madam Speaker, in order to pit the MPs against the people by insinuating and suggesting that the failures are on account of the MP, when he knows that it is his officers who entirely holds the bull in regards to the implementation of CDF? 100%. I seek your ruling, Madam Speaker.
From the context, what the Honorable Minister was saying was that there will be 5 members appointed by each Member of Parliament to sit on the committee. With the Honorable Member of Parliament, there will be 6 people. So if there will be any failure about the implementation of CDF, it will fall on the shoulders of the Member of Parliament. I thought that's what he said. That is the context that he was saying. Well, those are the issues that you can discuss when the bill comes for debate on the floor of the House. You can also make representations with the committee. Honorable members, can we pay attention? The honorable members can, I'm sure the bill is under consideration before a committee now. Let's go there and make representations. Otherwise, for those people that you are not interested in CDF, we can just indicate that I'm not interested in CDF. Please don't give to my constituents. It will end up there. Honorable Minister, take note. Honorable Member Fonkana is no longer interested in CDF. Find somebody else to implement it in his constituents. That's the only way that we can do. Can we make progress? That was offside. Let's go. Honorable Member for Nalolo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the Minister of Local Government for his response. Madam Speaker, the loans and grants under CDF, when they were introduced, inflation in Zambia was about below 10%. Now inflation is way above 13%, and grants for cooperatives still stand at 40,000 kwacha. Now, Madam Speaker, in the real ideal situation, grants should be monitored by people with business acumen. In this case, from civil society, we used to use business development officers. Now, in the council, we have director of works, DCs, monitoring businesses. Now, Honorable Minister, the M&E framework under the local government, is it able to report to you as the policy holder how successful at the national level these grants have been? Because I would like to agree with the Honorable Member for Kalawu that when we go through these constituencies, we cannot really see in terms of, for infrastructure, yes, we are seeing, but in terms of grants and loans, if we have people who are not qualified monitoring, like technical people and DCs, are we sure we are going to see the progress? Don't we need a business development officer in the council? I submit, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Madam. Madam, in response to the question by the Honorable Member of Parliament for Nalolo, allow me to just preface my answer with the fact that, Honorable Member, when you are talking to adults, it is forbidden to put your hands in the pocket. The way you are addressing me with your hand in your pocket, it is a sign of mutual complementarity. Madam, he's asking whether or not in the council establishment we need not to put business development officers who, in his view, can have a much more interpretative evaluation of the success of the loans and the grants component of the CDF. I think he's right, because progression needs to show. Madam, there are cases that I'm going to give examples
of. The honorable members, let's listen to what is happening. There's a lot of talking, consultations. For those members who want to consult, please step outside, do your consultations, and come back in the House. We are not able to follow what is happening. Yeah. Too much walking up and down and whispering, talking, caucusing. May the Honorable Minister continue.
Thank you. We should first accept that the idea of the CDF grants and loans is novel. It's a very new idea. And the journey of 1,000,000 miles starts with one step. We need to have a vigorous program on cultural shifts, cultural changes among our people. Part of the findings that we in the ministry got in the first year, because grants are basically a grant. It's free money from your government to yourselves. We found out that in certain cases where the cooperators were many, the 40,000 kwacha became insignificant, to say the truth. And what they ended up doing is that they just ended up sharing it. And after sharing it, the books of that cooperative were closed. We are trying to find a solution to that, to make sure that the component is meaningful and brings people out of poverty. We have another challenge, Madam Speaker, that I'm willing and able to share with the House, is that because of the gap of not paying the WDC's allowances, some WDC members then started having inertia to value and process applications of their cooperators and also entrepreneurs in the case of loans. And in certain cases, they began demanding for payback or kickback, that if you want us to take this application to the council, we are just working free of charge, you must do something. Obviously, this is information that we have received, but without impeccable evidence in order for us to prosecute those who are involved in such activities. All that notwithstanding, Madam Speaker, we still believe that that component of the grants to our citizens, once well insulated against the culture, the old culture of not wanting to progress. Because take 40,000 kwacha, Honorable Member of Parliament, for Nalolo, and you want to do a chicken run. I think what's sensible is that there should be as few members of the cooperators as possible so that it can make business sense and it can provide for growth. So in a case where the cooperators are 100 and you give them 40,000 kwacha, it diminishes the value. And so together, yourselves and myself, who is privileged to be sitting at the policy desk, can work together. And part of the continuous development of the law, remember, laws are living documents. You can come, as the Speaker said, to the committee and bring in your ideas on how you think this particular component can be more meaningful to our citizens. Finally, I'm very glad to see the Honorable Member of Parliament, Fona Konde, is sitting over there, the Honorable MP for Chirundu, and a few other MPs who, on the spreadsheet of the progression, have recorded very positive results. Congratulations, Lucas, Honorable Lucas Simumba. I do not know if Honorable Lucas Simumba would also share the same sentiments as the Honorable MP for Nkana and say that he feels CDF is not needed. So I'm inviting, by way of public proclamation, all of you MPs who want to follow Honorable Bino Mpundu's route, that you don't need the CDF, to come and register so that when time for success comes, we don't pat you on the back. And the converse side is that when failure occurs, we also won't blame you, because you will have said you don't want to have anything to do with Constituent Development Fund. We've taken that on record, and we've taken it seriously, that Nkana representative has put himself on record today on the 29th day of February. It's nothing to do with Nikawera or Shakawere. There is someone who's trying to Nikawera here, even at the boundary of creating a treason. You watch the space. This CDF is a serious affair, and we are depending on you, honorable members, especially those with a negative view of the CDF, that by the time the dust settles, you find you're out of the vehicle, and the vehicle is gone.
Before we proceed, there was an indication from the Honorable Member for Chama South for a point of order. What's the point of order, Honorable Member?
Madam Speaker, overtaken by events. Yes.
Sorry, I just didn't want to, I wanted the answer to flow. Sorry about that. The Honorable Member for Kalabo Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, since Zambia was born, ever since Zambia was born. It has never faced this empowerment. It's the first time, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, this tool, the CDF tool, which is a blessing to the people of Zambia, arising from the election. Honorable Minister, your staff at the council, this morning, Madam Honorable Minister, I was talking to one of the officers at the council, Madam Speaker. I was telling her that you are against the HH agenda. This morning, I told her that you are against the agenda of HH. How can you assure us of good performance from your officers? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Madam Speaker, it gives me delight to hear such a passionate question coming from a colleague. I want you to reflect to 2021 post-August election, and also to reflect on 2011 September elections and see what happened after those two elections. I'll try and remind you. After the 2011 elections, I used to sit there where Honorable Mungandu is seated, Honorable Muntanga used to sit where the leader of the opposition is seated. I moved a motion. The motion I moved was to urge government not to dismiss employees in national interest, those employees that are perceived to be UPND and Tonga speaking. It was a very straightforward motion. I'm sure those who were there, Mr. Chisopa was there. I moved that motion there. And that motion, Madam Speaker, was moved by this MP then, Minister now, because the President at that time, while conducting a campaign in a constituency called Malambo, he used these words, wako ni wako, meaning you vote for yours, only yours. And not all Tongas are UPND. That's what former President, can you give me a chance? I need a chance because I'm saying the truth. Okay,
there is a point of order. What's the point of order?
Madam Speaker, I rise on this point of order with a very heavy heart. Madam Speaker, I was here at the period being mentioned. Madam Speaker, my point of order, first of all, is pursuant to Standing Order 65. There was no such a time, Madam Speaker, when this August House approved a motion which had tribal connotations. And there has been no such a time when a motion was moved by the Honorable Member of Parliament then and still for Mazabuka, who is now a national leader, who should by all means try to make statements that are unifying. Is it in order, Madam Speaker, to even bring people that cannot come here and defend themselves, who is alleging to have been campaigning on wako basis, who cannot come and defend themselves? He's a national leader, for heaven's sake. Cabinet portfolio is a national portfolio, which should espouse the one Zambia, one national motto. He's the Honorable Minister. In order to continue responding to straightforward questions in such a fashion, we seek your serious guidance, Madam Speaker, because this August House is a National Assembly. which unifies all the regions of this country. Is in order, Madam Speaker, to continue on that trajectory. I think it was a very serious ruling on this matter.
Order, honorable members. What I heard the minister saying was that a motion was moved, not that it was approved. He was still giving his background to the answer. But please, honorable ministers, we answer, let's not try to go back to open cans of worms, because that will not promote the One Zambia, One Nation unitary state that we are promoting. So please, as you answer your questions, just restrict yourselves to the answers so that we avoid controversy. May the honorable minister continue.
Thank you, Madam. Madam, I'm answering the question that speaks to the staff attitudes. That's what I'm answering. And I'm building a case. And I want to put it on record that it is this mouth that moved the motion here. Maybe some people were too high up, they could not understand what was going on in this house. The MP candidate was Jack Schumer. He still is my brother-in-law and among the living when those words that I said were said by former President Edgar Lungu. Let me come to the point. That was 2011 election. In 2021, President Hakainde Hichilema advised all of us, after we told him that we have a lot of PF surrogates in the councils, he said to us in cabinet, give them time to reform. I'm sure all my cabinet members know that. Give them a year to reform. After 1 year finished, he said, give them 1 more year to reform. This is 2 years and a half. He said, I do not want anyone to be fired on a frivolous assertion of national interest, which sits in the law. That's what the president said. Now, it is clear, Madam Speaker, that there is still a small foothold of PF surrogates in our councils. And this question from the Honorable Member of Parliament for Kalabo Central has come at the right time. So that when you now start hearing that this one has been knocked out on the account of national interest, don't be surprised. Because they were given sufficient moratorium to pull the agenda of President Hakainde Hichilema. There should be no excitement about this because we gave the council workers, even in the Ministry of Education, which my colleague runs there's no single debt that has been knocked out. And they were all told, please pull the agenda of this government because we want collective success. Come to my office, Honorable Mutu. Maybe we will take to the guillotine that officer who you said is not pulling the agenda of the president. We'll take the name to the commission. They will investigate. And if indeed it's true, she or he is not pulling the agenda of government, meaning we don't want people delaying us, we will not hesitate to put them aside. I want to end by saying, Madam Speaker, in the next few minutes, I'll order from the Hansard that motion, which I moved myself in this chamber, that spoke to the fact that people were being removed from employment based on a frivolous assertion of the law that exists of national interest, but it was coated with a tribe of flavor by those who were there before us, these ones here.
Thank you. There was an indication from the Honorable Member for Nakonde for a point of order. Please, we will need to move because if we continue at this rate, I'm going to the next question. The Honorable Member for Nakonde, what's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, I'm a new member, first entrance, and hearing from my elder brother talking about the PF employees in the council.
What's the point of order, Honorable Member? What's the point of order?
The point of order is the Minister of Local Government who is my elder brother, in order to insinuate that in the council there are PF surrogates without laying the evidence, Madam Speaker, here, and yet we are here hearing from him to say there are some PF employees in the council who are surrogates without laying the evidence. I seek your serious guidance on this, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Nakonde, I don't know if you were in the House. It's better to listen to what is happening, then you can follow the proceedings. If you were listening to the question by the Honorable Member for Kalabo Central, it was talking about the same things that we were asking about, where you are raising a point of order. The Honorable Minister was just trying to answer that question. So it was not, if you want to laugh, then Honorable Member Fonkana, the things that you laugh at, is it laughing at me or at yourself? Or at who? Who do you laugh at? You continuously keep on laughing. I don't know why. And it's not the first time. You have on several times started giggling, laughing, unnecessarily. Whether there's, the other day I was even asking, does somebody tickle you or something like that? Yeah. If you want to laugh, go and laugh outside. When you are done, then you come back. Let's make progress. Honorable Member for Feira. Honorable Member for Feira.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think the point with regard to the monitoring and evaluation framework, which the Minister has said is in existence, and I think where a concern has been raised as to the capacity of the local authorities to monitor. I know for sure that monitoring and evaluation is a specialized field. And if the Minister is confident, and without reference to this political party or the other, I just want to know what has been the performance in percentage terms of the empowerment sector of the CDF. I thank you, Madam.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Colleague and friend, thank you for that question. It's indeed a very progressive question, I must say. The assessment of progression of the component of CDF loans as well as grants is a continuous process. And what I said was that the yardstick, the main yardstick, was to move our people out of poverty. I think that the councils may not have the requisite tools to make a determination of how well it has lifted our people from poverty. However, there are organs within government, such as the Central Statistics Office, in the demographic health surveys that they conduct every so often. We could put a component or a question, because they go to every household. We could put a question in that particular questionnaire to deal with exactly that. And that can be done by furnishing the enumerators with the names of cooperatives, the names of individuals or small-scale entrepreneurs who have accessed this loan, and make it a focus point in order to come out with whether or not it has lifted our people from poverty. I hope that the answer is sufficient, honorable colleague. Just to put it straightforward, there's no immediate expertise in the council to make that determination of averaging the success of the component of loans and grants, because it's a novel idea. It is a good question you've asked me, and I'll get back to my office and put that on the action list to make sure that we find a quicker way of determining whether there's transformation happening in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, I think this is an important question. Let's not go around with it, politicizing it. We want to find a solution. So I'll allow a few more members to ask questions which are pertinent. Honorable Member for Lukasha.
Madam Speaker, I'm grateful for the opportunity to ask the Honourable Minister of Local Government a question, a follow-up question. Let me start by expressing the hope, Madam Speaker, that with the answers the Minister has given to Honourable questions, our hard-working workers in the local authorities will not start living under fear of being dismissed. But my question, Honourable Minister, is this monitoring and evaluation unit, where in the city, in the local authorities is it hubbed, and how frequently does it report to the CFC committee and to your ministry? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Every local authority requires to give a report. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, we asked them to give a quarterly or half-yearly report on the progress of the Constituent Development Fund. Charity begins at home, Honourable Member of Parliament for Lukasha. Let me give you an example of the constituency that I represent myself and what I do. In the last but one meeting, I told my town clerk, I said, can you invite all those people who took loans last year to our meeting, the CDFC meeting? I made that order. I said, I'm coming to Mazabuka. I want a session with all those who benefited from loans and maybe 10% sample of those who got grants so that we get report, first-hand report, and which reports are also based on the visitations. That when the evaluation and monitoring team went, they came with the report, and some reports were adverse, some reports were good. In the case of Mazabuka that I represent, I can tell you that in a ward called Malubombo, there are people, a cooperative that got money for fish farming. So when they went into Lubombo, they asked them, where is your fish farm? Where are your ponds? They said, the ponds are here. Where is the fish? The fish is here. Why haven't you paid your loan back? They said, because there's a fish ban. But you are now spending money, 6 months, the fish is ready to sell. Then they said, we have had a problem to communicate with you because we can't sell our fish because the fisheries department is going to confiscate because this fish is not labeled Lubombo Ponds or Kafue River. So can you get us a special permit from the fisheries department to offload our fish so that we stop feeding them? It is that kind of engagement that I'm now trying to illustrate that you as an MP should take interest. In the case of the loans, I know clearly that when the committee sat in the maiden period, we agreed that these loans should be sent to commercial banks because MPs are scared of the people who voted for them to be able to pinder them. Listen to what I told those whose loans were not performing. I said, bailiffs are coming for you because this was a loan and you must start performing on this loan because you cannot come with an attitude that this is Boma money, therefore I will not pay. The bank was seated there with a report. And I can tell you, when we went to the last meeting that I attended, I again said, I want to see the performance. A few had started paying. So it is an indicator of the fact that it can work, but it requires you to take interest to make sure that it works down there. And in my case, again, I'll say, one of the persons who got a loan that was not performing well was somebody who's close to me as a person, not a relative. And I went down on him like a ton of bricks, and I told him to say, look, if you don't do the right thing, we will be in trouble. And today he's up to date. So I'm requesting you, honorable members of parliament, not to be scared of being voted out. Help the banks recover these loans so that the next set of applicants can also benefit from these particular loans. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The honorable member for Chifubu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, as we stand, some of the constituencies have not even given loans and grants for 2023, as we are talking now. Now, my question to you, Honorable Minister, is how effective is your monitoring and evaluation function that you have established in the Council by the reports that they give you, your people, who are part of the same people who are implementing these programs within the Council? I want to find out how effective are these reports that are coming to you, because these same people who are in the evaluation committee, they are the same people who are also implementing, and they are the people who are delaying the programs for CDF. How effective? Do they include these in your report to notify you that we are part of this, we are part of the people who are causing delays to some of these CDF programs? If you have that, Honorable, share with some of the committee, some of the councils that have given such reports. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Madam, the first measure of checking whether funds are being utilized or not is a simple one. You go to the bank and check what the bank balance is. If when you go to the bank 6 months after the money is dispersed, you still find the same money still sitting, you know that something is not moving. So no matter what report they give you, no matter how cosmetic it may be, no matter how good the floral they want to make it look, just the bank balance will tell you that they are not telling you the truth. One yardstick. The second one is that the monitoring and evaluation team, and let me take advantage of your question, honorable members. We are normally here in Lusaka, plus or minus 8 months, is it 7 months of the year. What I've learned is that when the council officers want to do a monitoring and evaluation, which includes some of the elected members, like the mayors and the councillors, I'm told there's a silent instruction to the town clerks and also the council secretaries not to allow such monitoring to happen. I've received many complaints from the mayors and chairmen that I'm not allowed to monitor and see government programs. Let me tell you that, yes, we may go into self-deception if you just trust one person to give you a report and say things are moving okay. And I put it to you that all elected members, worth their salt, must push the agenda that sees development in their respective jurisdictions. And so allow, the president has said to me, when somebody, I think someone was complaining that the Secretary General of UPND is the one monitoring CDF projects. And so once that happened, the president and I had a chat. And he said, even the church pastor in that particular jurisdiction, a citizen, a teacher, anybody, a citizen, because this is their money, they have the right to go and inspect and give an independent report that here where you say there's a clinic being built, there's nothing. And so the advice is that let us free the space, honorable members. After all, if there's quality work going on, the credit comes to you. And if there's quantity or shoddy work going, let that citizen who has made it their duty by evolution to go and see that things are, money for the government is being used properly, be your informer. To say here, honorable member of parliament for Kalabo, while you are 700 miles away, what your people are doing is this. It's useful information. So we use community intelligence. This is also another way to determine whether what we are doing is correct or not. I hope that suffices, honorable member.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kawata.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Minister, I can testify that these empowerment loans, especially in my constituency, they have actually worked and people are actually paying. We have one cooperative that actually got a loan, and now they want even to start sewing uniforms in different schools. But however, I will change a bit of the discussion which is here. Everyone is just concentrating on the issue of loan and grants, but we've forgotten about the skills training, the empowerment that people are receiving, and we don't know what impact it is making on the youths. I'll give an example. For instance, in Kalau, we have some of these youths that are going for training to train heavy equipment or driving, and yet they do not have the capacity or even the number of vehicles in Kalau that are not even many. So is your ministry working hand in hand with the owners of the skills, which is Ministry of Science and Technology, to ensure that you come up with a system on how you can balance up these issues? Of course, in Kawata, it is working. Those who are going for heavy duty equipment, we are able to find something for them to do. But what about those in rural areas? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
The Honorable MP for Kawata is speaking to the issue of interministerial collaboration. Madam, our relationship with the Ministry of Science, I wish the Minister was here, is completely embedded. If you come to my office and say, I would like to know how many learners under TEVET program you have sponsored, I will give it to you because the Minister has furnished that information to myself. We've had several meetings with the Ministry of Technology and Science to compare notes on how successful this program for learning is and how transformational it is. And I can assure you, I can tell you, that much as there may not be equipment in Kalabo, the people who live in Kalabo are Zambian enough to be trained and to go out and look for employment even in Mazabuka, where we have machines that deal with the can industry. So even if you come from the remotest part of this country, it does not exclude you from training in heavy machinery or equipment operation. Because once you have that certificate, you can go to the mines and drive a Caterpillar, Shantui, bulldozer, even if you are coming from Kaolo. And that is the intention, Honorable Member, of this Constitutional Development Fund. It is meant to create opportunities for those who ordinarily would never have seen that kind of opportunity under the leadership of our President.
I think we have sufficiently dealt with that question. We can make progress. Apologies for those who have indicated. Next question, the Honorable Member for Feira.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Once again, question 252. I thank you.
The Honorable Acting Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Feira, Honourable E. Tembo, does ask the Minister of Transport and Logistics whether government has any plans to modernize the Luangwa Harbour at the confluence of Luangwa and the Zambezi River in Luangwa District, so as to enhance trade between Zambia, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. And in B, Madam Speaker, if so, when the plans will be implemented. And last but not least, what the trade volumes between Zambia, Mozambique, and Zambia, Zimbabwe at the harbour was as of August of 2023. Madam Speaker, in response to the question raised by Honourable Member of Parliament, government does have plans to modernize the Luangwa Harbour to ease the movement of cargo and passengers, as well as provide safe anchorage of boats and enhance trade with the neighboring countries. Madam Speaker, in B, for the period 2024 to 2026, government has prioritized construction of harbour and port facilities in 23 selected districts, including Luangwa. The project will be implemented in a phased manner, with Luangwa Harbour being in phase 2. Therefore,
Modernization of Luangwa Harbour will be implemented once Phase 1 is completed and government mobilizes the required resources for Phase 2. However, Madam Speaker, in the interim, the government, through the Ministry of Transport and Logistics, had set aside 4 million kwacha in 2023, in the 2023 budget rather, and another 4 million in the 2024 budget for the construction of the selected landing bays, including Luangwa Harbour. Design plans and bill of quantities for the construction of the landing bays have been developed and awaiting commencement of the project. The last section of the question, Madam Speaker. Generally, the trade volumes between Zambia and Mozambique in 2021 stood at 30,448 metric tons, whilst the imports stood at 86,326 metric tons. In 2022, the export volumes increased from 30,448 to 30,489 metric tons, while imports declined by 44% from 86,326 metric tons to 48,755 in 2022. As at August 2023, the import trade volume stood at 14,690 metric tons, whereas exports were at 57,885 metric tons. Madam Speaker, between Zambia and Zimbabwe, import trade volumes increased by 14% from 312,695 metric tons recorded in 2021 to 355,244 metric tons in 2022. The export trade volumes increased by 63% from 681,986 metric tons in 2021 to 1,111,346 metric tons in 2022. As at August 2023, the import trade volume stood at 469,944 metric tons, while exports were at 232,062 metric tons. Madam Speaker, this August House may wish to note that the significant proportion of trade at the Luangwa Harbour has been classified as non-commercial. And non-commercial, by that, Madam Speaker, we mean fish, groceries, and those of building materials, and are usually below the $2,000 thresholds. This makes it hard to determine the actual trade volumes between Zambia and Mozambique, as well as Zambia and Zimbabwe. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. Supplementary questions. The Honourable Member for Faro.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the question arises from the fact that the Luangwa Harbour is predominantly informal. Yes, ZRA and other government departments are there, but they are not working, up to optimum. And even the figure of 2,000 as, being the quantum in terms of money, may not be the same, because there is a lot of, if you look at just fish going to Kasumbalesa, coming into Lusaka, Eastern Province, many other parts of it, these amounts will go, in a month, well over $100,000. And in this view, I just want to find out when these plans to modernize, because as you modernize, you also be able to detect the correct, statistics. So when exactly? I know that there's a period. Is the minister able to give us a specific period? I think.
Thank you. The Honourable Acting Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you for that follow-up question from Honourable Member of Parliament for Faro. Madam Speaker, I wish to indicate that we as government has realized the need to modernize a number of these ports, of these harbours, considering the very fact that Zambia today prides itself as a land-linked nation. And that's the reason why, in my statement, Madam Speaker, we did indicate that we're talking about 23 selected districts where we're going to modernize the ports. And it definitely speaks to what Honourable Member of Parliament here is talking about, as to how we're going to harness these particular ports, or is it harbours, that are dotted across the country. And the very fact, Madam Speaker, that we indicated that the Luangwa Harbour is one of those which we're going to modernize in the second phase, I wish to indicate to this August House, Madam Speaker, that over and above what we want to have in the first phase, we have the likes of Siavonga, one in Shangombo, the one in Chelenge, Kalabo, Lukulu, Senanga, and that in Kabompo. Once those ones are done in the first phase, then we'll gradually go into the second phase. For me, Madam Speaker, to indicate the exact date on when the Luangwa harbour will be modernized would be a little bit too early days, but I must just assure the Honourable Member of Parliament that that particular one in Luangwa is one of the critical ones that we want to modernize. And also from the tourism perspective, Madam Speaker, we want to also indicate to the Honourable Member of Parliament that we are in talks with the 3 countries, and we're calling it the ZIMOZA, Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia corridor, which we want to make sure that we get as much trade traffic as we possibly can within that particular area. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Pambashe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the statement by the Minister said 2023, there was 4 million allocated for landing jet development. And this year, 2024, there's another 4 million. Will the Minister be considerate enough to tell us and the Zambian people which landing jets were worked on in the 2023 budget, bearing in mind that Zambia doesn't run a carried forward budget, that which was prepared for 2023, it ceased to exist on 31st December 2023. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honourable Acting Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I'm happy that I did actually preempt. Little did I know that that question was going to come from Honourable Member of Parliament for Pambashe. Madam Speaker, agreed in terms of budgeting, we do not carry forward. Everything goes to Control 99. But I want to indicate, Madam Speaker, that in 2024, the Ministry has prioritized the construction of the Siavonga Harbour, Chelenge, as well as the Shangombo harbours for this particular year, where we're going to start working on. For 2024, the designs for these ones, as well, the engineering designs for these particular harbours has been done, and will definitely be on course to making sure that they are modernized. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Feira.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I actually thought the Minister stated that these allocations were for Luangwa Harbour, because that's what the question is. I just want a clarification. Is the Minister saying that for the 2020, the contract that is underway, that does not include Luangwa, or it does? I just want to be clear.
The Honourable Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much, and thank you very much for that follow-up question. Madam Speaker, I think I have indicated, and I will say it again at the risk of sounding pedantic. The Ministry of Transport and Logistics has set aside 4 million kwacha for the modernization of the following harbours. 1, Siavonga, Chelenge, and Shangombo. And I did indicate that the only trigger into managing the Luangwa Harbour is when we're done with the phase 1. And in phase 1, Luangwa does not appear. And we're working tirelessly within the ministry to ensuring that most of these harbours are modernized because of the need that we've seen of the trade that it will enhance if these particular harbours are done. So I can very much guarantee you that because of the need of us having to increase trade, we will look at having to expedite these particular ones that we have earmarked in the 2024 budget. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. The next question, the Honourable Member for Mitete.
Grateful, Madam Speaker. Question number 253.
The Honourable Acting Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Mitete, Honourable Mutelo, does ask the Minister of Transport and Logistics whether government has any plans to procure a pontoon to enhance connectivity through the water transports between Kakulunda and Simakumba in Mitete and Lukulu district respectively? And if so, when the plans will be implemented, and if there are no such plans, why? Madam Speaker, in response to the question raised by Honourable Member of Parliament for Mitete Parliamentary Constituency, I wish to inform this August House as follows. Government has no immediate plans to install a pontoon between Kakulunda and Simakumba in Mitete and Lukulu district respectively due to resource constraints. In B, Madam Speaker, as stated in A, government has no immediate plans to implement the installation of the pontoon. And last, Madam Speaker, this August House may be aware that the provision of the pontoon services is one of the functions that has been devolved to the local authorities. Therefore, all constituencies, including Mitete and that of Lukulu, that have crossing points and require the services of a pontoon are urged to make financial provisions for their constituency development funds for the installation of these pontoons. The ministry can be engaged to conduct an assessment on how much will be required for certain installation, as well as the provision of technical assistance. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary questions. The Honourable Member for Mitete.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much. Minister, thank you. No immediate plans. I'm interested in your last response where you've said CDF because the pontoons, of course, to my knowledge as well, devolved to councils. In case of Mitete, all the CDF funds for now are committed. They are committed to schools, clinics, police posts. Isn't there any plan, even as now we'll be thinking of the pontoon at Kakulunda and Simakumba, any plan from your ministry to help? I know there are no immediate plans, but to just help the movement of vehicles in between Lukula and the Kakulunda in Mitete, because the CDF monies are already committed for now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honourable Acting Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Member, for that follow-up question. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, we were unable to salvage any finances, any resources within our budget line. But like as I mentioned, I think in as much as we are working towards fulfilling some of those assignments through CDF, we're talking about maternity wings, classroom blocks, desks, clean water and sanitation. It will be very helpful if, with the devolved authority that has been bestowed to the local authorities, we should be able to find ways and means on how to find resources for that. And also, Madam Speaker, I will engage my team from the ministry to see if there's any decommissioned pontoon across the country that will be able to now take to your area, that will be able to assist us in the safe passage of our people between the two crossing points. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Mitete.
Thank you once more again, Madam Speaker, and Minister, grateful. Wouldn't it be prudent to speak to your colleague, yes, Honourable Minister of Infrastructure, so that maybe we go the bridge way? We put a bridge on this crossing point. Wouldn't that be okay for you to share with the Minister of Infrastructure? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
We started with helicopters, then drones, now pontoon, now it's bridge. The people of Mitete are very lucky. The Honorable Minister, Acting Minister of Transport and Logistics.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. And I'd just like to thank the Honourable Member of Parliament for that follow-up question. Indeed, Madam Speaker, two heads are better than one. We will definitely look at the options. In fact, it becomes more sustainable to actually have a bridge across the two crossing points as opposed to having a pontoon, which obviously has its own running costs. And as I mentioned, as I indicated earlier, we will see which solution comes up first, whether we look out for a decommissioned pontoon from across any of these regions, or indeed one of these Bailey bridges which would be lying around at infrastructure and urban development, where we'll be able to have it commissioned or laid at the two crossing points. So, Madam Speaker, I will engage my colleague Minister from Infrastructure to see the possibilities of having to put in a more sustainable solution of a bridge. Could be a Bailey bridge or otherwise. Madam Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. Next question, the Honorable Member for Mulobezi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 254.
The Honorable Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Member for Mulobezi, Honorable Mabenga, is asking my ministry 3 questions. A, whether the government has any plans for the road connecting Mulobezi and the Stili wards in Mulobezi parliamentary constituency. B, if so, when the plans will be implemented. And C, if there are no such plans, why? Our answer is as follows, Madam Speaker. The government has plans to upgrade to bituminous standard the road connecting Mulobezi and the Stili wards in Mulobezi parliamentary constituency, once the required funds have been secured by the Treasury. B, the plans will be considered for implementation once Treasury secures funds. And the C, as indicated at A above, government has plans to upgrade to bituminous standard the road connecting Mulobezi and Stili wards. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Supplementary questions, the Honorable Member for Mulobezi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. That is a very good plan, and we thank you, Lord. Yes, so we thank you, Honorable Minister, for that information. But meanwhile, while waiting for the bituminous standard, can't we do something to make the road passable, because it's in a terrible state at the moment? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And a bit more information about some of these plans and what we are doing in the interim. The government, through the Road Development Agency, has plans to connect the Luampa junction to Machile Simungoma Road to provide a road linkage and trade facilitation route connecting the Copper Belt, Northwestern Province and Western Province to Namibia. This will also include the Mulobezi and the Stili wards connectivity. The Road Development Agency Regional Office carried out spot improvement works between Simungoma Junction and Machile, that's 70 kilometers, under force account. The works were undertaken at a cost of 2.56 million kwacha. Zambia National Service will be engaged to undertake some spot improvement works on the Simungoma Junction to Machile before the end of the second quarter in 2024. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Member from Mlowezi, you are satisfied we can make progress?
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you.
Thank you very much. We move the next question, the Honorable Member for Wacha.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Question number 255.
The Honorable Acting Minister for Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honorable Member for Bwacha, Honorable Stephen Mushanga, is asking the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development the following questions. A, why rehabilitation works of the Zambia National Service, Kasavasa, Kalwele, Chisamba, Chaminuka Road in Central Province are stalled? B, how many kilometers of the road were covered as of August 2023? C, how many kilometers are yet to be covered? And D, who is the contractor for the project? And E, what the cost of the project is. Madam Speaker, the answer is as follows. In response to the question raised by Honorable Mushanga, I wish to inform this august House that A, the rehabilitation works on the ZNS, Kasavasa, Kalwele, Chisamba, Chaminuka Road in Central Province stalled due to lack of funding. The project was subsequently terminated in order for government to effectively manage the debt burden in the road sector. B, the contract covered 58.3 kilometers of clearing and grubbing, 58.3 kilometers of road bed formation. Only 2 kilometers was gravelled before the contract was terminated in October 2022. C, approximately 56.3 kilometers is yet to be covered by gravel. D, the contractor was Shachitari Contractors Limited. E, the project cost was 66,581,054 kwacha, 33 ngwe. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary questions. The Honorable Member for Wacha.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for the answers or responses that you have provided. In responding to question A, Minister, you indicated that the contract was terminated, that is in 2022, October, due to a lack of funds. Is there a possibility, Honorable Minister, to restart the contract in the near future once resources are mobilized? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Acting Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Honorable Member for the follow-up questions. It gives us an opportunity to state yet again that the suspension of projects in order to allow government to manage the huge mountain of debt in the road sector that we inherited was but a temporary measure. It was to allow government to take control of that debt. And once we're on top of that and the resources are available, as we certainly know, we are going to improve the economy. The answer to your question, Honorable Member, is yes, projects such as this will be resuscitated. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Wacha.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for yet another opportunity to pose a follow-up question. Minister, you've just indicated that the termination of contracts, not only for the road works, for the contract in question or the road in question, but also others were terminated. The termination was a temporal. That was your indication. if I'm not mistaken. The minister is nodding. Maybe.
The other issue is the honorable members are in deep discussions, loudly so. Honorable member for Lunte, what did the honorable member for Wacha say? You see? You are not following the proceedings. You are seated there chatting. You are not following. If you are consulting, please do it in lower tones because I can hear it. The tones are too high. Thank you. So the honorable member for Wacha was saying the honorable minister was nodding, acknowledging that there are some plans, isn't it?
I think the minister was disputing before I even posed a question. So I wanted to clarify if he stated that the termination of the contracts are actually temporal. So I wanted to find out if there is any possibility, Madam Speaker, for the government to secure resources or funds during this period of time between 2021 and 2026 for the contracts to be resumed. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Acting Minister of Local Government and Rural Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The nodding of the head was to indicate that I could not quite hear the question, because I could also hear what the Honorable Member for Lunte was talking about. Yes, Madam Speaker. To restate again that these projects are within our beautiful country, Zambia, and they were embarked upon because there is need for these projects to be carried out. We carried out a management decision so that we could get on top of our finances, and when resources are available, which we certainly hope they will be available as we improve our economy, these projects will be resuscitated by way of restarting them. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whether it is before 2026 or not, all we are saying is when resources become available. That's why we need your support in terms of what we are doing in the economy so that we can improve the economy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. Notes of motion. The Honorable Member for Chifunabuli.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do adopt the report of the Zambian delegation to the 54th Plenary Assembly Session on the SADC Parliamentary Forum, SADC-PF, hosted by the National Assembly of Mauritius in Port Louis, Republic of Mauritius, from 22nd to 26th November 2022, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th February 2024.
Just the year, I don't know, November, which year?
20 November, from 22nd to 26th November 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the motion seconded?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Seconded by the Honorable Member for Chavuma. The question is that this House do adopt the report of the Zambian delegation to the 54th Plenary Assembly Session of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, hosted by the National Assembly of Mauritius in Port Louis, Mauritius, from 22nd to 26th November 2023 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th February 2024. Any debate? The Honorable Member for Chifunabuli.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 146 of the National Assembly, Standing Orders 2021, I wish to render a report of the activities of the 54th Plenary Assembly session of the SADC-PF, as well as an executive summary highlighting the key recommendations made by the Assembly. Madam, the 54th Plenary Assembly convened under the theme, the role of Parliament in promoting coordination for enhanced disaster risk reduction and recovery planning in the SADC region. To enhance the capacity of member parliaments to prepare for natural disasters from a multi-sectoral approach and to ensure a swift recovery that does the least damage to national economies. Madam Speaker, some of the activities that characterized Plenary Assembly was the adoption of the report of the Executive Committee on Policy and Administrative Matters, and the report on Official Matters, or the Treasurer's Report, which dealt with a multiplicity of policy, administrative, and financial matters of the Forum, including the transformation of the Forum into a SADC region parliament. Other reports considered and approved include the report of the Regional Women's Parliamentary Caucus, RWPC, reports of standing committees, and members' motions. Madam Speaker, the objectives of the 54th Plenary Assembly session sought to, among other things, take stock of the legislative frameworks for the disaster risk reduction and preparedness planning, deliberate on the role of the role of Parliament in ensuring disaster risk reduction and preparedness planning within SADC countries, including by domestication of the Sendai framework. Consider avenues of cooperation between SADC parliaments to improve an existing regional framework for disaster risk reduction and preparedness planning, and commemorate the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which fell on 25th November 2023, as well as discuss the importance of women's participation in formulating disaster risk reduction and preparedness planning policies. In this keynote, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Mauritius and Leader of the House in the National Assembly of Mauritius, Honorable Dr. Pravindi Jagnot, acknowledged the critical role that parliaments played in addressing the growing challenges posed by natural disasters and climate change in the SADC region, including cyclones, droughts, and floods, which have tragically claimed numerous lives and destroyed property. The Prime Minister emphasized that as institutions that were entrusted with the solemn duty not only enact laws and shape public policies, but also to allocate resources judiciously, parliaments were central to addressing the challenges of the disaster risk management, climate mitigation, and adaptation. Madam Speaker, as honorable members have had the opportunity to read the report on delegation, allow me to only highlight some of the key recommendations contained in the report. Madam Speaker, with regard to the theme, Plenary Assembly commended the Republic of Mauritius as the host for the 54th Plenary Assembly for developing a national disaster risk reduction strategy framework 2020 to 2030, as well as the action plan for the same period to consolidate climate resilience, in addition to enacting targeted legislation such as the Land Drainage Authority Act and the Climate Change Act. Member parliaments were called upon to develop new synergies with policymakers, academia, civil society organizations, traditional and faith leaders, community-based organizations, youth representatives, and other stakeholders to promote climate justice by reducing the carbon footprint through measures in line with the Paris Agreement regularly reported to the United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP. Plenary Assembly reminded member states about the importance of regional coordination in disaster risk reduction and preparedness, especially that countries of the same geographical regions witness similar weather patterns and are affected by similar climate events. In this regard, member states were encouraged to share best practices, technology, contemporary weather data, and lessons to promote disaster preparedness and risk reduction. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, Plenary Assembly also considered and approved the report of the RWPC and the reforms of the standing committees, which held a virtual public hearing from 11th to 18th October 2023 on the theme Amplifying Citizens' Voices in Regional Integration in Southern Africa, bridging the engagement gap by bringing Parliament to the people. Madam Speaker, Plenary Assembly adopted the recommendation by the Standing Committee on Gender Equality, Women Advancement and Youth Development, that member states should increase availability, accessibility, and utilization of gender-based violence essential services such as infrastructures and influence government to domesticate the SADC model law. Gender-based violence.
Up. If you could just wind up. You can proceed, but your time is up. I will use my discretion. You can proceed.
Gender-based violence plenary also adopted the submission that member parliament should play a rightful oversight role in ensuring that SADC countries fully domesticate the SADC model law, gender-based violence, and eradicating child marriage and protecting those already in marriage. Plenary Assembly further adopted the call by the Committee on Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources on SADC member states to promote inclusivity and gender responsiveness towards climate change, while at the same time implementing Paris Agreement. Plenary also supported the recommendation from SADC member states to secure resources for climate financing to repair damaged infrastructure and mitigate other climate change effects, as well as come up with strategies to enhance the regional preparedness and responses to address the growing threat of droughts and flooding induced by the climate change. In conclusion, Honorable Madam Speaker, I wish to express profound gratitude on behalf of the delegation to the 54th Plenary Assembly, to you and the Office of the Clerk of the National Assembly for the guidance and support rendered during the undertaking. Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak now or later?
Now, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Chavuma.
Madam Speaker, I rise to support the motion to adopt the report of the Zambian delegation to the 54th Plenary Assembly session of the SADC Parliamentary Forum hosted by the Parliament of Mauritius in Port Louis, Mauritius, from 22nd to 26th November 2023. So ably moved by Honorable Nyemba, representing the wonderful people of Chifunabude. Madam Speaker, the President of the SADC Parliamentary Forum and Speaker of the National Assembly of Seychelles, Honorable Roger Mansiene, in his welcome remarks, observed the vulnerability of the SADC region.
Apologies, Honorable Member for Chavuma. There is a point of order. Honorable Member for Pambashe, what's the point of order?
Madam Speaker, Inyali, my brother-in-law, as a seconder by practice of this parliament, he's supposed to speak to the motion, but he's reading a speech also. Is he in order to read a secondment speech? I seek your serious guidance, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Honorable Member for Chavuma, please speak to the motion. Do not read, unless if you have some difficulties in doing that. May you proceed.
Madam Speaker, the Honorable Member for Pambashe, I thought is a senior MP. He is aware that I'm just using this as talking notes. Allow me to repeat, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the President of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, the Speaker of the National Assembly of Seychelles, Honorable Roger Mansiene, in his welcome remarks, observed the vulnerability of SADC region to disasters. It was recommended that national parliaments in the region should ensure that there is investment in disaster preparedness. As representatives of the people who approve national budgets, we should ensure that adequate funds are allocated to address disasters and catalyze our electorate to embrace recovery plans. Madam Speaker, in order for us to manage disasters, there is need for action outcomes such as strengthening coordination of interventions that are aimed at addressing disasters in the country and the region at large. There is need to identify and harness expertise that can shape the destiny of the country's response to disasters. Madam Speaker, Zambia is prone to flash floods in some parts. Currently, the country is facing rising temperatures with decreased rainfall in other areas. Hence, there is need to support the meteorological department to invest heavily in early warning systems and climate service, technology cooperation, meteorological observation network, weather forecasting and warning capabilities, among others. Mauritius shared some best practices, including improving its resilience, promoting timely information and better service delivery, enhancing the meteorological observation network, constant capacity building of staff, timely dissemination of warning to stakeholders such as media, among others. Madam Speaker, as a parliament, we have a role to promote coordination for enhanced disaster risk reduction and recovery planning in the country. We need to advocate for adherence and compliance to international and regional agreements and promote domestication of various international commitments. Further, Madam Speaker, we need to enact new legislation and amend the pre-existing pieces of climate change, adopt budgets and address disasters, and exercise constant oversight to track implementation and to ensure adherence. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, I wish to reiterate the movers' sentiments and remind Member States about the importance of regional cooperation in disaster risk reduction and preparedness, especially that countries of the same geographical region witness similar weather patterns and are affected by similar climate events. In this regard, Member States are encouraged to share best practices, technology, simultaneously weather data lessons to promote disaster preparedness and risk reduction. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Those were indeed copious notes. Any further debate? The Honorable Member for Lunte.
Madam Speaker, I wish to appreciate the moment to read some copious notes. Madam Speaker, vulnerability to disasters are real. This is why it is important to listen to people who know. And as we travel, even as we went to Mauritius, I am happy we listened to people who understand. People who are saying there are models which, when you follow, you can mitigate these disasters. Madam Speaker, today, in Zambia, we are talking about droughts. Today in Zambia, we can talk about the fact that we had plenty maize in shades, which maize has been sold. Madam Speaker, Parliament, the role of Parliament in coordinating disasters should be respected. This is why when members stand up here on the floor of the House to advise a government on what measures to take, government must listen. Madam Speaker, the disaster of hunger in our country today is a direct result of the sold maize. Which maize? Parliament advised, do not sell. Government was dancing on the floor of the House, saying we will never stop selling.
Apologies, Honourable Member for Lunte. There is an indication for a point of order from the Honourable Minister of Agriculture. What's the point of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on point 65, item 1B. That is content of speech. Madam Speaker, I came in this House and gave a ministerial statement and indicated clearly that the so-called maize which was in sheds in abundance was maize that was not paid for by the previous government. We paid more than 1.8 billion kwacha in order to acquit that maize. The coffers which the current government found were empty because the government which the honourable member who is speaking was part of it, and they left no money whatsoever. We had to sell that maize in order to raise money to pay those farmers. Madam Speaker, is the minister, former minister, in order to stand in this House and give wrong insinuations when in fact he knew that the maize needed to be paid for, needed to be sold so that we raise money? May he, Madam Speaker, is he in order to speak like that and misinform the country? Madam Speaker, I seek your serious ruling. Thank you.
Order. Honourable members, the report of the SADC parliamentary delegation. I don't know how the issue of the maize and the maize that was in the sheds comes in. Of course, we are talking about disasters, but let's remain relevant to the motion that is on the floor of the House that is being debated. So, Honourable Member for Lunte, as you debate, just bear in mind that there's a motion and a report that we are debating. So, if you can concentrate on the report. Of course, when you give examples, don't give examples that are not closer to the report. When you talk about drought, yes, one can understand drought. We have a drought now. We have to find mitigation measures. But on the drought now, you put maize, how it was sold again, then you are not being relevant to the report. As the time is 16:40 hours, I suspend business for 30 minutes for a health break.
Thank you very much for still being with us on Parliament Television, and under consideration is
20 minutes break.
You are still watching Parliament Television. The House has taken a 20 minutes health break, and under consideration is a motion moved by Chifunabuli Member of Parliament, Ms. Julian Nyemba, and this is a motion to urge the House to adopt the report of the Zambian delegation to the 54th Plenary Assembly session of the SADC Parliamentary Forum hosted by the National Assembly of Mauritius in Port Louis, Mauritius from 22nd to 26 November 2023 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th February 2024. And this motion has been seconded by Mr. Victor Lumai Chavuma, Member of Parliament. And just before the House took a break, we had the Klunte Member of Parliament, Mr. Mkwaya Katotwe, making his contribution to this motion that is under consideration.
Thank you very much. And so far the House has considered 6 questions for oral answer under Standing Order 74. and I will be able to give you the details during the broadcast today. So stay glued right here on Parliament Television as we continue to bring Parliament closer to you.
Well, I'm a self-motivated person. I don't need to be pushed. Yeah, and I'm a self-starter. My grade 1, I did it at Misoro Primary School. Then grade 8 at Petauke Day. Then 12 at Petauke Boarding Secondary School. That was way back in 1994. My tertiary education, I've done my first degree with Rusank University in business administration, specialized in human resource management. Our family, we are a family of 7, although one sister died. Mom died. We are just with my dad. My core business was I'm a businessman. I run transport, I run lodges, I run transport, and I'm into construction. I joined politics in 1991 because it was in me. During school, I used to be a very good one of those who could do debate and what. So I started politics in 1991. I'm an elder in the SDA church, and I do go to church, and then I do watch soccer, and I read novels. I represent Msanzara constituency in the Eastern Province. First thing is we want to make sure that our people are united, and you know, with this new bursaries that has come in for free education, we want at least all our people to go back to school. Those who went astray, those who went for early marriages, we want them back into schools, and we want good road infrastructure, we want good health infrastructure, and to improve on the livelihood of our people. You know, our constituency is a rural constituency where even water is a problem. So we really make sure to say part of the CDF we utilize it to drill boreholes, and then some part of that money we use it also for aquaculture, like creation of dams. All those are part of the things that we want to empower our people in Msanzara constituency.
My name's Jean Chisengangandwe, and I was born in 1989 in Mwense district. I come from a family of 7, and I'm fourth born. I went to school in Mansa for my primary school. I then after went to Ndola for my secondary school. I also later on went to Australian Institute of Business and Technology, where I did my foundations of law, and later on Cavendish University for my bachelor's. I later on found myself on the floor of the House, having contested against 7 men. My constituency is not so vast. I have about 35,000 people there, and we have 10 wards. Our livelihood there is fishing and farming, and we're also trying to find new ways of living for our people, because we are really entirely depend on fishing, and you know our fish that side has literally depleted. We are looking for a new way of livelihood. I'm looking at education, water, sanitation, and then health. But you know, even when you have an education and then you don't have a good health, then it doesn't mean anything. So my two priorities are water and health. So with the coming of CDF, we are hoping we can make a few adjustments, starting especially with water and health. And as it were, we are also trying to lobby from our cooperating partners and other companies to see how they can come in and help us so that we enhance our health care as well as water development in the constituency. I first of all want to thank them because it wasn't easy looking at the support that they had given me, because I've already stated that I was contesting amongst men, older men who are not youths actually. So there was a lot of intimidation, there was a lot of words that came from different kinds of people. But here I am today. I want to assure the people of Mambilima that just as I had promised when we were working, I want to deliver, especially to the youths and the women that had put in their effort, sleepless nights to support me. They had given up their homes, some of them, just so they could support. So I pledge to work for them.
I'm a villager from Sesheke. My name is Romeo Lileko Kangombe. Of course, I'm a married man with so many children. 4 girls, 1 boy, Kangombe Jr. I'm married to Mainga Nkoani, Tumbuka by tribe. I represent the good people of Sesheke. Sesheke is the biggest constituency in Zambia. It's standing on the area of 27,272 square kilometers. It's got 10 wards, Nakatindi, Mulimambango, Maondo, Katima, Kalovolelwa, Lusu, Luampungu, Imusho, and Nangombe. Sesheke is at the border of Zambia, Namibia, as well as Angola. It's just right on the banks of Zambezi River. It's of course neighboring with Sioma, Shangombo, Mwandi, and Mulobezi, partly Luampa. Before I joined politics, I've been in the corporate world. I'm a businessman by profession as well as a farmer, if you can say that's a profession. I'm a tax consultant, and I'm also pursuing my degree in political science with the University of Lusaka. I came to Parliament in 2019. On the 12th of February, through a highly contested by-election, I believe, in the history of this country, which fortunately by God's divine providence, I emerged victorious. And I'm the first ever parliamentarian for the people of Sesheke to return the seat, and the first youthful parliamentarian for the people of Sesheke, and I'm forever indebted to them, and I'll continue serving them diligently. I also sit in the highest organ of the UPND, the party in power. On our structural organogram, I believe should be, if not number 5, number 6 from the presidents in the Office of Mobilization and Strategy. So you can say I'm the youngest political strategist in Africa. Besides that, I'm the last born, of course, in the family of so many people. My father was a very strong man, and mom being the first wife, and 3 down the line. So we were plus minus around 24 somewhere, and I'm the last born. So basically, that's all about Romeo Kangombe in a nutshell. my developmental agenda, firstly, before joining politics, I, had a vision of just making a difference for the people of Sesheke. And I believe with the team that I have, the council chair, the DC, as well as the councillors, so far so good. We've done quite a milestone in terms of development. We have 5 pillars. That's agriculture, education, health, as well as access to market. What else? Value addition. Sesheke being one of the, strategically located place, closer to the border, closer to the export point, and of course the home of timber. So in terms of development, I'll quickly rush into the 4 pillars, the 5 pillars that I've earlier on alluded to. Education. With the coming in of the new Dawn administration and the pronouncement of free education, Sesheke, just like many other constituencies, has suffered quite a number of challenges in terms of infrastructure development, especially in the education sector. With the help of the increasement of CDF, with the new Dawn administration from a tune of 1.56 million to 25.7, which by arithmetic it was increased by 1,600%. We've been able to cut quite a number of developmental issues with regards to education. I would say in terms of the primary level, which solely speaks to the free education and the increase in PQs going to school, we've done quite a number of projects. We've done 1x3 we've done 1x3 in Nakatindi. We've done 1x2 in Maondo. We've done 2 1x3 renovations in Maondo as well. We've done 1x3 in Imusho. We are doing 1x3 in Nangombe. We've done 1x2 already in Luampungu. We've done 1x2 in Kalobolelo. We've done 1x2 in Katima, and we are also doing 1x3 in Katima as well at the moment. We've done a laboratory in Katima. We've done a 1x3 in Chivula, that is in Mosho again. We've done a 1x3, first ever in Selumbu at a place called Kapau, which is one of the oldest schools in Sesheke. So I would say in terms of education, that's how far we've gone. That is in the first allocation of CDF that we've had. Sesheke is the first, I would say, as of now, the first constituents that have really spoken to the presidential directive with regards to access to quality health services, it being that we've done 17 maternity annexes, fully water reticulated, fully powered. We're just waiting to mobilize equipment that are delivery beds as well as postnatal beds. Other than that, we are also embarking on one of the biggest projects, I would say, in Western Province. That is the township urban integrated water reticulation program, which is earmarked to be completed by the end of this month, July, with the help of World Bank, of course. So in terms of access to market, we are yet to undertake a project with ZNS, already funded, just waiting for ZNS to move in. That is funded by CDF. We'll be doing the township roads in Sesheke. So when we look at our scorecard in terms of development, we see where we're coming from and where we're going. We can only wish for God to encompass round about the president himself so that we can continue with his vision of developing this country, and of course giving us the CDF timely, unlike the way it was in the past. So that's what we've done at the moment. My last words to the people of Sesheke are, please continue praying for us, pray for the president himself, because without him we would not be able to achieve what we've achieved so far, and even achieve more that we expect to achieve. So pray for us, your leaders, and of course, let's work hand in hand. We are not there to completely take away your challenges, but we will be able to augment, especially where development is concerned.
Continue to spread love this February with Topstar and enjoy affordable entertainment. For a monthly subscription of 180 kwacha on Antenna Classic OD Smart, experience the excitement of the Bundesliga title race on Saturday the 24th as trailing Bayern faces Leipzig at 19:30 hours live on World Football. Also returning to action is the CAF Champions League and Confederations Cup. Watch TP Mazembe versus Pyramids on Saturday the 24th at 15 hours and Al Ahly versus Young Africans on Saturday the 2nd of March at 18 hours live in HD on Sports Premium. But there's more. Fantasy becomes reality with Novella E+, premiering My Forever Sunshine, airing from 27th at 21:30 hours. Also follow love and passion as it crosses paths in a family affair every day at 20:40 hours. Entertain the little ones with great kids shows on Boeing, CBeebies and ST Kids plus more. Subscribe now. Topstar. Enjoy digital life.
You are still watching Parliament television, and under consideration just before the House went on the 20 minutes health break was a motion moved by Chifunabuli Member of Parliament Julian Nyembe, and this is a motion to urge the House to adopt a report on the Zambia delegation to the 54th Plenary Assembly session of the SADC Parliamentary Forum hosted by the National Assembly of Mauritius in Port Louis, Mauritius from 22nd to 26 November 2023 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20 February 2024. And at the time the House went on break, we had Mr. Kafwaya Mutotwe, Member of Parliament for Lunte, who was adding his voice to the motion under discussion.
And, this motion was seconded by Chavuma, Member of Parliament, Mr. Victor Lumai. So,
Mr. Speaker.
When business was suspended, the House was considering the motion moved by the Honourable Member for Chifunabuli that this House do adopt a report of the Zambian delegation to the 54th Plenary Assembly session on the SADC Parliamentary Forum hosted by National Assembly of Mauritius in Port Louis, Mauritius from 22nd to 26th November 2023 for the third session of the 13th National Assembly laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th February 2024, and the Honourable Member for Lunte was debating. May the Honourable Member continue.
Mr. Speaker, what a pleasure to continue reading my copious notes. Mr. Speaker, ways and means happens here on the floor of the House. Ways and means is how revenue is approved for government to spend. Money to pay farmers is appropriated here in the House. We have now heard other ways in which UPND government has been paying farmers. This is supplementary information. Mr. Speaker, The role of parliaments in promoting coordination in disasters is important. We all have to understand that we do legislation here. We've got to understand that we represent our people and we offer oversight on the executive. And this is a point I'm trying to drive. Standing on the floor of the House and telling a minister not to sell maize is oversight.
Honorable member, may you take your seat? May you take your seat? Earlier, relevance to your speech, because from the onset, I think the minister indicated why he rose on the point of order, why the maize was sold, and honorable member for the next member to the honorable member from Kaika, don't debate whilst you are seated there. I'm guiding, and then you are also trying to talk on top of your voice. Restrict your debate on the report that has been presented on the floor. Madam Speaker guided already. So veering off, I'll just end up curtailing you and picking the next member.
Mr. Speaker, if Parliament cannot offer oversight, if Parliament cannot be respected for offering oversight, then there is a problem with the executive. This is why, even this drought which we have now, it will create future hunger. And the fact that we have no food will be compounded by the fact that there are no reserves. It's a very serious point.
Honorable member, may you take your seat? Take your seat. Honorable member for Mabashem.
Mr. Speaker, the report on the Mauritius, it is for best practice that we as Parliament of Zambia, we must learn and bring it back home. Because what happened in Mauritius may not happen in Zambia. And Zambia has a peculiar situation. So we must learn something, borrow, and then compare with what is happening on the ground here in Zambia. And for that matter, as the executive, because I remember the seconder even referred to the report by the Minister for Green Economy, and they emphasized the need why to pay attention to service ministries when they provide information to those client ministries that use that information for implementation to avoid disasters. Basically, Mr. Speaker, much of the disasters in Zambia are human-induced disasters, are disasters that happen due to stubbornness of those that are supposed to use that information by deliberately neglecting to take heed and the advice that is provided to them. Yeah. So it is critical and very important. If you check the situation in Mauritius, those of us who have been privileged to go to that country, you know that that is an island. It's a country that sits in between the ocean. And there are difficulties that they face may not be the same difficulties that Zambia is facing today. Bringing the disasters, Mr. Speaker, that Zambia is experiencing today back home in terms of droughts. I remember, Mr. Speaker, that you can also agree with me. The Minister for Green Economy, somewhere in October, November last year, stood here, you gave him a permission to lend a ministerial statement to forewarn and give the forecast information to the executive for the purpose of decision making. And the Minister of Green Economy, I remember very well, said this information must be given, and he gave the weather prediction. And what did we see, Mr. Speaker? We saw the opposite of what the Minister for Green Economy, the same executive, had provided. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, last week, I gave a practical example. 196,000 packs given to one province where we have no rain. A province, Muchinga,
Luapula, Northern Province, Mr. Chairman, or the Mr. Speaker, sorry. The three provinces put together, 200
Honorable member, were you attentive when the report, may you take your seat, when the report was being presented? Were you very attentive? It spoke to natural disasters. Natural disasters, how they can be mitigated. Yes, so as such, let's, Honorable Member for Nkana, I think, leave the House. Honorable Member for Nkana, leave the House. Yes, leave the House. You want me to name you? That could be another alternative, because I'm telling you, leave the House. Okay. I will have no option, because you can't be debating while I seated, and I've cautioned you severally. Today not being an exceptional. Standing orders 208. Oh, he has left. Okay. 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 You may continue, Honorable Member. Let's confine our debate to the report that has been presented on the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I treasure your counsel. And Seconda gave a practical example on how the user ministries must use information from the ministry responsible for climate change for us to provide the mitigation. And this is the example I'm driving to, Mr. Speaker. When the Ministry for Health comes to give us information on how we must prevent cholera, the other ministries must buy into that, and not neglect, and then we come and deal with the effects of the cholera. If they say we need to supply the clean drinking water in our townships, the Ministry for Water must be able to respond to that, so that we can mitigate and we avoid the situation of cholera. Now I have chosen, Mr. Speaker, what has been seen to be a widespread problem of disaster that is going to affect almost everyone in Zambia. And I want to pin it down to say, when the information is provided, that is for honing us, we, the decision makers, we must be able to listen. We must be able to plan to mitigate the disaster. That's why, Mr. Speaker, I said, much of the disasters in Zambia are human-induced due to failure to listen to advice. If today, Mr. Speaker, we had listened to Minister for Green Economy, the cry for food shortage in Zambia would have been avoided. Government would have spared money and spent to other need areas. But because we didn't want to, we want to do things for political expedience and not for economic benefit. And this is a problem. I gave an example that one province, Eastern Province, was given 196 packs. Luapula Province was given 61 packs. The Muchinga Province was given 58 packs.
But Honorable Member for Bambash, I've guided you. The report that was presented on the floor, it never spoke to what you are saying. When the report, in order to avoid the speaking the way you are doing for political expedience, let's restrict ourselves to what the report is saying. The report is talking about natural disasters, preparedness. So let's restrict ourselves as such. Restrict yourself in that order. I've guided, Honorable Member.
Your Honor, the Vice President, you are in charge of disaster preparedness and disaster mitigation and disaster prevention. In the simple English, there's what he said, prevention is better than cure. It is very expensive even for your office to deal with the aftermath of disaster. It is easier for us to mitigate. It is easier for us to prevent disaster from happening. And this can only happen, Your Honor, the Vice President, by listening from the professional advice, doing things correctly, because those institutions that are created are there to feed in the governance structures. But if those institutions are feeding in governance structures and then we tend to ignore them, what we will do is, we are not in executive, we will use the parliament to advise you. Because this is the only platform we have to speak to you. The Minister Youth, I think you need to name him. I've been a minister for 10 years. We're just there for 3 years. He is distracting my attention, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member, if you are restricting your debate according to the report, because in Zambia, let me guide, first of all, in Zambia, there's never been a time that any minister or the vice president on the floor of the House has declared that there's been a disaster. So let's restrict ourselves to the report that has been presented. We know very well that the minister came on the floor of the House, said we were food secure until June. So I don't know the disaster you are talking about. Let's restrict our conversation to the report that has been presented, other than misleading the public.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for guidance, but for those members who are distracting and debating, they are seated, like the Minister for Youth.
If you restrict yourself, Honorable Member, to the report, the rantings won't be there. So restrict yourself to the report.
Chair, the report is very clear. His Excellency the President, I remember last week or 2 weeks ago, lamented and said, I advise Zambians to grow maize, and maize has gone to waste. That is a disaster in waiting. The President has acknowledged that problem. We can't give a blind eye to the reality unless we want to bury our heads in the sand. And tomorrow, posterity is going to judge us very harshly, Your Honor, the Vice President. Let's be real to the reality of what is happening on the ground. And this is what I'm bringing to those who are feeling uncomfortable. Please, let me advise those that can take this advice. If you feel uncomfortable, keep quiet. This is a thing that is affecting people. This is a real situation. People today are crying, maize is drying.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
And that minister, before I sit, Mr. Speaker,
there's a point
he came
of
here
order.
dancing and selling maize. So he must be the last one to speak.
The Honorable Member, there's a point of order.
No. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as Minister of Agriculture, I will not hesitate to stand up and correct information which is being given dangerously to the public. I refer yet again to Standing Order Item 65, which says we should stand on the floor of this House and give factual information. Let me say this, Mr. Speaker, in case we could be getting things wrong. No one is refusing that the rainfall pattern in Zambia is moving from the southern part and going up north. No one is refusing that Muchinga, Luapula, northern and northwestern are now most suited to get into rain-fed agriculture. However, Mr. Speaker, people should have facts, and just in case the Speaker, the man on the floor, the honorable member on the floor didn't know, the area cultivated, the entire area cultivated in Luapula province, the entire area, Mr. Speaker, cultivated in Luapula province is still far less than the area wasted, for example, in the Eastern province. Whether we like it or not, we must accept, but we must be moving forward. So, Mr. Speaker, is the man on the floor, the honorable member on the floor, in order to inform the country, mislead the country in that manner? And I want to insist, as Minister of Agriculture, with facts, empirical evidence, I will not sit down. I will continue standing on points of orders until we get the truth coming out. Why is he referring, Mr. Speaker? Is it in order to continue referring that we gave more parks to Eastern, more parks to Southern, and less? What's the insinuation? Is it in order to insinuate to the public that we are guiding, giving fertilizer to wrong areas, knowing very well that there will be no rainfall in those areas? When the area planted, even if we gave 100%, is still less than half the area in these two provinces, which are wasted. Is it in order, Mr. Speaker, to mislead himself, the country, and this chamber? Thank you.
Thank you. The honorable member for Bombashe is completely out of order. Let's ensure that we talk on a verified point of view with facts to avoid misleading the public. The public is very attentive listening to Parliament and both radio and TV, including social media platforms. So let's ensure that we don't mislead the public, because our speeches, our presentation to some extent can be inciting if we are not careful. Let's ensure that we talk from a verified point of view. The honorable member may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, the Minister of Agriculture is saying the people of Luapula must grow more land even if they don't have fertilizer has not supplied to them, because they grow according to the fertilizer supplied to them. If he gives them 10 bags, they'll grow land equivalent to 10 bags. So they are listening that they don't grow maize, and thank you very much, Minister. We have heard. Mr. Speaker, this is the problem. And I want to speak to our Honourable Vice President. When you have people who are opposed to advice, it becomes difficult because the mistake of one individual can cost everyone. And unfortunately, this is the situation. If the people of Kaputa are given 20 bags of fertilizer, they can't grow area equivalent to 100 bags. It's impossible. If he wants to grow capacity in Luapula, Northern, Muchinga, Northwestern, let him give them enough fertilizer. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The honorable member for Nyimba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me just add few words on this very important report from SADC. And Mr. Speaker, you agree with me that a good number of international organizations and different parliaments across Africa are talking about climate change and natural disasters. These are the things which are happening in each and every country. If you look back in the last 5-10 years, East Africa was highly affected, and crops, animals were lost. We come to our area, which is SADC today. Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, and partially Mozambique, we find that we are badly affected with this either drought or floods. And when affected in this matter, it's the duty for the government to see to it that we start looking at issues or start looking at plans which can reduce the suffering of our Zambian population. Today, Mr. Speaker, we have talked too much about mechanization of our fields in different provinces, but we are not moving the talk. It is time now that we start investing in irrigation across this country. I agree with you. You agree with me that in the southern part of this country, southern part of Eastern Province and southern part of Lusaka, the lands are no more. This is an open secret. And these are areas where we've got seasonal rivers. What is it that we are doing as government, as Zambians, to come up with a plan to start damming these areas? If you go to the Ministry of Agriculture today, a good number of people have gone to Israel for benchmarking. And they've seen what Israel has done, turning desert into a fertile land. Those who went to COP27, you have seen how Dubai has turned the deserts. You have seen those who went to COP27 or 30, You have seen what the Emirates have done to turn Dubai into an agriculture hub of this of Middle East. So what is it that we are talking about? We need to start looking at measures to see to it that we start developing our local farmers. Today, whether we like it or not, an area like Eastern Province, our core business or industry is farming. And the country is becoming dry, and rivers are always with water. Why can't we come up with dams to mitigate we start doing the dammed water to irrigate our fields? These are the things we should be looking at. I'll give you a practical example of things I've been crying for area like ZNS in Nyimba. The river passes through the borders of Zambia National Service farms. But to put up a dam, mechanize that area, it's the most fertile land between Msanzara, Petauke, and Nyimba. The whole area is fertile, touching 3 areas. Why can't we dam those rivers and see to it that we come up with a big farm which can at least employ a good number of people? Not just the goodness of investing in mechanization is that we are going to employ every professional at that farm. These are the things we should start looking at as government. These are the things you people from the right there start investing in. It does not make sense for us just to invest into consumption. Today we are getting monies. Are we investing such part of that money into climate agriculture, climate smart agriculture? Are we doing it? If not, what is it that we are doing? My plea to the executive is that what you have seen in SADC report, you see it in ECOWAX report, you see it in East Africa Parliament, and our colleagues from Kenya have moved. Even our neighboring neighbors in Zimbabwe have moved, but we are not moving as a country. So my plea that even as we read this report, let's not shelve them. Let's pick the best practices from this area, from these reports, and if we implement them, surely we are going to have a solution. Today, whether we like it or not, we need to mechanize Rapula province. We need to mechanize Northwestern province, because this is where lanes are. We need to dam Eastern province, we need to dam Southern province, we need to dam Western province, and part of Central province where there are no lanes. This should start happening now. We shouldn't, there will be no any other government which will come and think they'll come and do it. Governments, it's going concerns, it's perpetual succession, so start it now. The others who come, if they'll come, they'll pick it up from there. This generation will be wiped out by nature, and the other generation who come, who is going to replace us by nature, they'll pick up from where we've started. So my plea to the executive is that we've started this report, we've seen a different report. The Minister of Green Economy gave us a very good report. Let's see to it that whatever comes, it's implemented. It's my plea to the executive that if you are not going to listen to these reports, at the end of the day, you end up panicking, because we are facing what we've never seen. What we have seen this year, it's a disaster, because wherever we're expecting to have maize, there is crop failure. Eastern province has got crop failure. 80 to 90% of Eastern province, the crop has failed. So as these other high producing provinces we have in the country, we're only expecting maize from Northwestern province, Luapula, and Mchinga provinces. So even as we are doing this, I'll still agree, let's encourage our brothers to produce more by mechanizing, by giving them tractors, by at least training them. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, is that the people we have who should help out this, those extension officers who are trained to be teaching people how to do smart agriculture, they're not doing their jobs, because the bosses also up there in Lusaka are not supervising them. So my plea to you, the executive, pull up your socks on this one, and let's see to it that at least we don't lose lives to hunger in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chama South.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I've been listening to different
members of this House debating this motion, this report. Clearly, after analyzing it, I have to state that when I was not here, I was listening to the President when he was addressing the nation on the effect of the El Nino. And all the answers he has already provided. As a President, we should be taking time to listen to what particularly the head of state is saying and his vision. I'll be very objective. We are talking about disaster preparedness. As I speak, Honorable Speaker, Mwata Lunzi Bridge between Chama and Lundazi has been washed away, which literally means Chama now is completely cut off from the rest of the country. We had Rwangwa Bridge being washed away. Now we have a crossing point between Lundazi and Chama also being washed away. One would ask, do we have torrential rainfall in Eastern Province? The answer is no. But it rained in Malawi. There are floods, waters coming from Malawi, Chama being a valley, we are being affected. This issue of trying to regionalize our politics is not going to help us. Not long ago, when our colleagues were on the right were on the left, they were also complaining on the number of packs they were receiving. This is the reality. Now that we have come to the left, we are also complaining. But what gives me hope is what the President is just from saying. How do we get out of this problem? This fertilizer that we are crying, Honorable Speaker, is not sustainable. This is a fact. How much money do we put in FISIP, where we want our people to get used to receiving fertilizers? No wonder painful decisions have to be made. And those of us who love this country, we are going to support such decisions. How much money? 80%, the Minister of Agriculture is there. He has just left. He will tell you that 80% of the money that we apportion to the agriculture sector is going to FISIP at the expense of real investment. And the President has indicated that he wants agriculture center of excellence in all the districts. We pay attention to this. You are doing very well. I'll be happy to see tractors in Chama. When our people were cultivating 2 hectares, they expand to 20 hectares. Not only that, other monies should be apportioned to extension officers so that 2 hectares should at least, if it was producing 10 tons, it should start producing 50 tons. That is the knowledge that we need. But at times we come here to politics. Disaster is not something that you can plan. There's a disaster that you can mitigate, but there's a certain disaster that you cannot mitigate. Just a few days ago, we had a very strong wind here in Osaka. Can you plan for such? The answer is no. On behalf of the people of Chama South, the President made a very clear or clarion call
to say, can we work together? He said, all political parties, all churches, can we work together to face the challenges that our country is going through? And for us, we've said, yes, we are ready to work with him to face these challenges. They are not insurmountable. So, Honorable Speaker, I would be appealing to all members of Parliament. Can we pay attention to what the executive, particularly pronouncements that are coming from our Honor the Vice President and the Republican President? Where they err, we should be there to also objectively offer checks and balances. We are not here to fight, to show that here you've done something wrong. We are here to offer solutions. And for me, statistics are there. I enjoy throwing jabs to our tribal cousins. You know, I enjoy two tribal tribes as my tribal cousins in this country. Northern region, go and check the figures. Or can we get the satellite images here? You want to see fields. Let's face that reality. Our colleagues, this is when they are learning. From subsistence cassava and millet to commercial maize. Since the rains are there, the President has even said that we are sending more people to go and impart more knowledge on commercial farming, and that's what we need. It's a fact. Get the images. You see the hectarage that is being farmed. Honorable Member for Kaputa there is agreeing with me. And check Southern region, Eastern province. Those are food baskets for this country. No wonder the President is saying, can we now invest into irrigation? Smallholder farmers, we shouldn't just be waiting for rain-fed, because the food security will only be secured if we mechanize. And this is the way that this country is going. So for me, Honorable Speaker, everything that we are discussing here has been addressed by His Excellency the President. I submit.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Shuangando.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this report from our delegation which went to Sadiq Park plenary session is very important. And I think as we debate, we must not veer off and start lamenting on matters that are not contained. And to be sure, I'll cite some extracts of the report. Mr. Speaker, the objectives of the 25th Plenary Assembly session sought inter alia, take stock of the legislative frameworks for disaster risk reduction and preparedness planning, deliberate on the role of parliaments in ensuring that disaster risk reduction and preparedness planning within SADC countries, including by domesticating the popularly known Sendai framework. Mr. Speaker, further, there was a clarion call which the Speaker of the Assembly acknowledged. He acknowledged the critical role that parliamentarians played in addressing the growing challenges posed by natural disasters and climate change in the SADC region, including cyclones, droughts, and floods. And they were making a clarion call to those that are legislators who have got the duty to not only enact laws and shape public policies, but also to allocate resources judiciously to the issues of climate change. This is a clarion call that is being made on us as legislators, Mr. Speaker. I was privileged to attend this Sendai framework when it was being coined in the Sendai seat of Japan as Deputy Minister under the Vice President's office, because this is where it is supposed to be implemented. The requirements of this framework, Mr. Speaker, are that we must work in advance, prepare for these disasters before they occur, to ensure that we have got instruments to forewarn both governments and sectors that make contributions to the economic growth of any country. And this one doesn't require even a blame game, and we shouldn't pass the buck. We as legislators are being asked, what have we done in order to operationalize this, domesticate this Sendai framework through the legal frameworks in this country? If we had done something, Mr. Speaker, today our farmers wouldn't be crying and dying of stress because of failure of their crop. We should have known in advance what was going to happen. So these are critical matters that we require to reflect on, and we can't be leaving this to either the president, the vice president. The clarion call is on us legislators to do our part, and in doing our part, we must together understand what needs to be done. How much resources do we need to put into the early warning systems so that before the calamity occurs, the systems are triggered? And that requires a multi-sectoral approach. So here, when we are advising government to make sure that they have got apparatus and they disseminate information, correct information to our farmers, so that our farmers do not incur losses by cultivating their farms, and yet there's no guaranteed rainfall. Here we had a report from the Committee on Agriculture, which pointed to straightforward issues: distribution of farming inputs without taking into account the agroecological regions, to understand the patterns of weather of our country and distribute inputs like that. I would love the minister to have been here. We were questioning him when he was making announcements of how he was distributing inputs. Why? Because we were aware of these challenges. When he was making announcements that he had reduced the inputs from 200,000 plus on copper belt to about 95,000 packs, we asked what informed his decisions. It's on record. So these are things that we are not supposed to even be politicking about. The issue of food security is a concern to all of us here. When our people are starving, when our people are not having food, there's no member of parliament here who will be safe, Mr. Speaker. It affects everyone. And we all know what we're talking about. Because if we are food secure, you don't expect to have the prices hitting the roof and beyond reach of our main citizens. When we are food secure, there will be abundant food for everyone. Our people won't be demonizing themselves. We won't be, get subjected to shame because you have to put food on the table. You have to start buying minimum in sachets. That comes from food insecurity, Mr. Speaker. And so we need to invest where it matters most. You're one of the Vice President. Trigger your systems so that this Sendai framework can be domesticated. We don't want to lag behind. The whole sense of us going to sit as SADC region under this platform of SADC Park is to share ideas, because when there's hunger here in Zambia, we will be looking for food either from the neighboring Zimbabwe or Tanzania. Just as the pressure we have had, which has now stressed the Honorable Minister of Agriculture. SADC region, when the food SADC is insecure, it affects everyone. We are now have to get GMO mini meal on behalf of Congo against our own laws. Why? Because the food security affects the whole region. And these are things we should not take pride in. So, Honorable Minister, don't become emotional. What concerns you concerns us. When we say, how much food stocks do we have in our reserves? It's because we know if we don't preserve what we have, we are going to have a challenge and our people will be in problems. And this is what is happening. So you don't have to be reactive. Listen to us when we're advising you. That yes, you're under pressure to give Congo and help them, but first look after your people. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Kawambwa.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on this report. Mr. Speaker, going through this report, what the mover of the report said or laid on this floor of the House this afternoon is not the entire report. He spoke to some issues in this report. This report, Mr. Speaker, is 19 pages. If we were to give the opportunity to the mover of this report to speak or read the entire report, it was going to take him not less than 1 hour. So this report is rich, and this report is big. Mr. Speaker, the title of this report is, or the theme from which this report derives its theme, it's the role of Parliament in promoting coordination for enhanced disaster risk reduction, and recovery planning in the region. I also tell you, Mr. Speaker, that I also took time to look at the delegation that went to attend this particular session in Mauritius. And I've noted the names of the people who are in this delegation. But I won't go to that. Mr. Speaker, because when we are speaking, it's like we are not speaking to this report. When we are talking to this report because of the richness of this report. Mr. Speaker, I heard in one of the rulings to say people listen to Parliament radio and they also watch Parliament TV. And yes, they do. And the people out there cannot be misled by anybody. Zambians are clever and they're able to discern. So this notion of saying when we speak here, we are speaking for the sake of misleading Zambians is neither here nor there. We're just doing our job. Why people sent us here. So we must be given that liberty to speak to these issues. Mr. Speaker, the background to this report, and I'm reading the report, it says the background. Disaster and climate risks were unprecedentedly on the increase with immense adverse impact on the ecosystems, food, and water security. This is what the report is talking about. Livelihoods and people's lives. The Southern African Development Community region had, over the last decade, experienced a number of climate-related hazards, such as drought, dry spells, floods, extreme temperatures, resulting in unparalleled casualty counts and unforeseen economic shocks. What's that report is talking to? So when we debate, we must talk to these things. When they talk about dry spells, we must talk about them. how does it affect Zambia as being part of the SADC region? What are the effects of that drought? What are the effects? This is what all the speakers have been talking to. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I'm wired differently. I would not divert from dealing with this speech or this report to go and talk about the presidential speech. Time will come to talk about the presidential speech. Today we have to deal with this report. In the recent 2 weeks, Mr. Speaker, there have been reports on the floor of this House. And it's like everything we are talking about this past 2 weeks, they are all feeding into one area or the other, talking to this report. It's like this report was distributed in advance. When the Committee on Agriculture spoke, it's like they were reading this report. When the Minister of Agriculture came to this floor of the House to talk about challenges and all sorts of things he spoke about, it's like he had read this report. When the Honorable Minister of Green Environment...
Honorable Member.
Yes, sir.
May you take your seat? To start with, we don't debate ourselves, number one. Number two, you don't make assertions that you can't prove that the report was circulated. Any report that has been submitted to the office of the clerk is secured. So if you say there was leakage of any sort, don't make insinuations, just debate accordingly.
Mr. Speaker, my apologies if you heard that I made insinuations. No, I didn't. I used the word like. It means the report, this report, and all the other issues I'm bringing into this report, which have been laid on the floor of this House, are feeding into the same thing of drought, extreme weather conditions, and the problems that arise thereof. That's what I was saying, Mr. Speaker. I did not in any way insinuate that the report was, I said like, which means that it was like. Mr. Speaker, fast forward. Mr. Speaker, when we speak about the drought in Zambia today, it's coming from this report. When we talk about drought spells, which we have experienced, and the effects are that we are going to have food shortages in this country. What are the mitigating issues that we as Parliament must put into place? This is what this report is saying. It's saying parliaments are important. They are important institutions, not only to provide oversight roles, but to be able to urge government or the executive to put in place measures that will mitigate these extreme weather conditions. Our role here, Mr. Speaker, is to advise those colleagues of ours on the other side, the people in the executive, to say, colleagues, the situation is dire. You need to pull up your socks. The situation of saying we sold the maize because we had to pay debt does not arise. The Zambians are much better. You cannot sell food from your house because you want to pay a debt and to leave your children hungry. That is not proper way of thinking. That is not proper way of doing things. Mr. Speaker, the dire consequences of this drought we are facing today and the mitigating effects that they are putting in place, Mr. Speaker, this is not time for rhetoric. This is not time for saying question. The people out there are hungry because of our climate change. People out there, they need solutions like yesterday, not the next day or next week or next year. Because at the right time, Mr. Speaker, a time is coming. A time of reckoning is coming. Mr. Speaker, the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, once said that it is not possible for Zambia to go through these problems unless those in the executive are not thinking properly, are not doing things in the right way. This issue of saying the problem of power shortages, of poor food supply, is because of negligence, lack of thinking by those in the executive. So The president said it many, many years ago before he became president. So if there are
Order.
problems arising from this, it's up to the president and
Your
these
time
people
is
to do
up,
it.
Honorable. The Honorable Member for Bwana Mkubwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this is a clarion call, and we are talking about issues of climate change, which is affecting our people. Either you are sitting from the left or right, I think it's imperative for us to have a place where we need to help each other and also give advice on how we move forward. Having looked at this report, is indicating the role of us as parliamentarians and also the forums and discussions which we could have to ensure that as SADC region, we come up with a framework which can help us mitigate climate change and disaster risks in terms of awareness and preparedness. Mr. Speaker, with that said, we are going through this drought. Is as a result of climate change. It only doesn't affect food, but also it will affect our economy as well, because it culminates in issues of economic loss, which will hamper our GDP and so many things. So it's important for us as members of parliament, even as we want to speak to one another, we need to come on the table with facts. We need to come on the table with solutions and mitigation measures, because it affects all of us. It's not an issue to politicize, because if we've got a drought, it's drought for everybody. It affects all of us. The price of commodities, food commodities, will all be affected. So it's important, Mr. Speaker, that us, all well-meaning Zambians, should ensure that we sit, how do we move forward together with the executive. We need to look at short-term intervention measures on how we can quickly start looking at issues of where do we get cheap maize for the country, how do we ensure that we enhance the irrigation systems in the country. Mr. Speaker, it is very, very sad that if you look at some of these programs, even under the Ministry of Agriculture, there's an AMEP program which gave us a loan, and irrigation systems were procured. But yet they are marooned in the bush, tractors are marooned in the bush and are not accountable. And these are some of the issues which even the President, His Excellency, is highlighting. How do we ensure that we channel these scarce resources to such sectors such as ZNS, such as commercial farmers, who can in the interim quickly ensure that they grow crop, they irrigate crop, and we can mitigate some of these issues moving forward as a country. Mr. Speaker, disaster and climate risk has got an impact on our ecosystem, our water and food security. My call, Mr. Speaker, again, is not to politicize this issue, but sit together and amicably find solutions which will help us in the interim to ensure that the Zambian people who've sent us here to come and represent them, that we have a roadmap to ensure that we save them, that we have food security, that we make a movement which will help mitigate this issue. And also, I heard one of my honorable colleagues talk about the Sendai framework. It's a very good framework. But as a region, as SADC region, we've got also country frameworks on how we want to ensure that we mitigate climate change as well as disaster preparedness and awareness. So it's important that we benchmark with our various colleagues and come up with a solution, with a well-meaning solution which will help the Zambian people to ensure that as we move forward, our farmers there, our citizens there, they are well informed to ensure that we make progress, as it were. On this report, Mr. Speaker, There were country perspective and country reports to give on how various countries in SADC region are mitigating or are moving towards to ensure that there is early warning and preparedness. And Zambia gave a report on how ZICTA has ensured that it is taking the ICT technology in terms of erecting of towers in various sections of the country to ensure that our people can get the information on climate change. But there are limitations to that effect as well. These are some of the issues we need to sit down and look at. How do we ensure that we extend the ICT on how we can quickly push or help our people to get information on various aspects vis-a-vis issues of climate change and disaster preparedness and awareness. So, Mr. Speaker, in my conclusion, what is important for us is a way forward. There are a lot of intervention measures, but we need to find a robust system which works for Zambia, which will work for Zambia. Then we can move forward and tell our people and have also short-term mitigation measures like which have been outlined by His Excellency the President to ensure that we mitigate this drought, we mitigate this climate change. Then moving forward, now we can have all these issues in terms of infrastructure development which are climate resilience as we embark on some of these constructions, as well as mitigation measures to ensure that our people are well informed. Even as we look at issues of our SDGs, how do we now harmonize and ensure that it is working with frameworks which are propagating and pushing issues of climate change and disaster mitigation to that effect. So as members of parliament, we've got a role to play, a very important role, which was also echoed by the Speaker of the National Assembly of Seychelles. These platforms are for us to benchmark, get ideas, and then formulate frameworks from our various countries to combat climate change and disaster mitigation. Mr. Speaker, I thought of highlighting those few issues to that report as to ensure that we move together as a country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I honor the Vice President to respond on behalf of the government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am just adding my voice because this is for adoption and it's a report, which really is, looking at it, it is a very rich report. And let me therefore start by commending the mover, the seconder, and the entire committee for having done such a thorough job. What I see, Mr. Speaker, is that we come in here and we want to do some politics, gymnastics. But speaking to the report, this report brings out, particularly on the disaster risk reduction, issues of concern for the entire region, for the SADC region. And therefore, to read into the report and therefore, derail the issue of the drought in the country, the issue of maize in the country. I think you see the sensitivity, Mr. Speaker, of the Minister of Agriculture because of the manner in which your members are debating in the House. To allege that there is no maize in the country is a very negative statement. The country currently has maize. And therefore, what this government is doing is actually to prepare that when the available maize is over, people should not go hungry. This is where we are. Not to say today there is a scarcity of maize. Maybe we can talk of distribution. But as you hear the minister, Mr. Speaker, maize is available. How are we distributing it? When people become sensitive that something is not there, you make people even start holding people start having, fears that maybe we will die of hunger, I can assure them that there is maize. And your government is doing everything in the same areas of concern. Disaster risk reduction. Not that there will be no disasters. They are, like everybody who has debated has said, these are more natural disasters, climate change related disasters, drought. Others will call them acts of God, things that are happening, but it is how we prepare. And this government is preparing, including the speech of today. So you can't move the speech of today by the president by saying, let us talk about what we think will happen. He is planning, his team is planning to ensure that indeed the issues of warning, preparedness, response is done. This government, indeed, the report and members that have debated have spoken of the Sendai framework. And one member says he was there attending. That must have been 2015. The Sendai framework was not left like that. In fact, I thought the member would even update the House that there was action to the Sendai framework. Because from this global framework called Sendai that was introduced in Sendai, Japan, came out what we call National Disaster Risk Management Framework, which is currently applicable, which is from 2017 to 2030. Yeah. So Zambia has domesticated the framework. And if you go back, you will find that, for example, now we are reviewing the National Disaster Management, policy framework. And it is capturing these things. We are rising. Because disasters like this, the same report has noted, have become more frequent, more intense, and even governments, particularly the government of President Hakainde Hichilema, UPND government, will work hard to ensure that we do not only mitigate, but we prepare for the things that we see coming. Yes, the president actually did call for people to produce maize. And I think fields can speak for themselves. The minister can give us the figures of the planted hectareage in the country. And we know so much has been spoiled. Today the president was giving a press briefing. But I was standing in for him where we were launching what is called mechanized 360 ulimi okwana. Today, this morning, mechanized 360 ulimi okwana. Is that Chipata language? But I can also say it 360 ubulimi ubwapwiririka nango bwafikapo. We can say it in any language you want, because this is a program for the entire country. Where, because we have seen that everybody must be involved, this is bringing mechanization, colleagues. What we launched today, and I saw some members of parliament there at the launch, it implies that we must increase farming, agriculture, where every province will have a center of excellence. Today, that is preparedness. It's not just each province to have a center of excellence in agriculture. Through mechanization, it is every district. We will end up with 6 centers so that we can prepare better. The issues of early warning, the speaker spoke to it because this is the real issue. And the call upon parliamentarians to get involved is the call from, it's a global call, it's a national call that we should get involved. In fact, Mr. Speaker, for us, in charge of the disaster management, we would call that this become a committee here. Because like members have said, we feel it. We are here. We know what our members are going through. And sometimes we demand beyond what can be done. But when you get involved, then you will be reasonable in your policy, in your legislative, duty that you do. So what I would want to say is, indeed, I agree with the report and appreciate it. Mr. Speaker, in SADC, we already have what we call humanitarian and emergency center. And it is actually, members, this is a coordinating center that looks at these issues. If there is, a problem, the humanitarian is coordinated. And how do we approach emergencies? It is actually headed by a Zambian. It is in Mozambique today, that center. That is how SADC is coordinating itself from the executive point. But the core is to bring in also the parliamentarians so that we can work together and see how we can reduce. We will not stop disasters, but we can reduce the risk. Together, what should we do? That is why today, even as the president was speaking, and even at the launch of the 360, mechanized 360, the issue is irrigation. It is part of preparedness, irrigation, so that we can use the underground water and any water available to be able to grow, our food, not just maize, we can grow other things. This is where your government is. It's providing those and ensuring the private sector produce small machines that people can access and be able to produce, enhancing or strengthening the extension services. This is what will make us prepare so that when that, a disaster like a drought comes, we are ready for, we are ready to mitigate and ensure our people don't die from hunger. But I would like to, Mr. Speaker, to repeat that let us stop making our people feel like there's no food in the country. We will work, we will sit, we will see that we distribute the available food. I think the minister spoke. You were worried about this. There was even the growing of early maize, which we are expecting to harvest. It was meant for export, but your government is going to buy. That is why somebody says, how can you feed somebody else's child and leave yours? No, not this government of President Hakainde. We are going to ensure that our people have food. And we are encouraging each one of you to go and do 1 hectare. And we will support to ensure that what you produce is better. Honorable Member for Shuangandu, 1 hectare, produce 200 bags. Produce 200 bags. This season, you can plant today. This is how we are thinking proactively. I am going to plant 1 hectare and produce 200 bags. Definitely, no matter how much I eat, I will still sell over 180. I will only eat 20. You have saved a life. Emma farmers, thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Nauli to wind up debate.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity of thanking the seconder of the motion, Honorable Rumai, for ably seconding the motion. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the honorable members of parliament who have debated well and who have spoken to the motion. Mr. Speaker, the Vice President, let's hope these pronouncements are not only going to end here, let them be addressed so that our people are not negatively affected. And the committee is also looking forward that the report will be of good help. With these few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to these honorable members of parliament seated here to adopt the motion on SADPF. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I put the question. The question is that this House do adopt a report of the Zambian delegation to the 54th Plenary Assembly session of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, hosted by the National Assembly of Mauritius in Port Louis, Mauritius, from 22nd to 26th November 2023, for the third session of the 13th National Assembly, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th February 2024. As many of that opinion say aye, of the contrary say no, the ayes have it. The question is resolved in the affirmative. Her Honor the Vice President, adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is that the House do now adjourn. Any debate? Any objection? The question is agreed to. The House is now adjourned.
Well, thank you very much for still being with us on Parliament Television. Business of the day has been concluded. Before we end our live transmission, we look at what has been discussed on the floor of the House today.
So, on the order paper today, we had 6 questions for oral answer, understanding order 76, and the first question is question 250, which came from Mr. Andrew Tayengwa, a Water Constituency Member of Parliament, who did direct his question to the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. He wanted to find out in 3 parts whether the government has any plans to construct a modern market in Kawata Parliamentary Constituency. And in responding, the Minister did say that indeed the government has plans to construct a modern market in Kawata Parliamentary Constituency. So in responding to Part B of the question, which shows when the plans of